What is up, guys? CM back again with another video. I know it's been a while, but I've been busy with a whole lot of stuff life-wise. I do actually have another couple of videos that one I've already done and one that I'm going to be working on after this one. Yeah, there's going to be more. Today, however, I'm going to be looking at maps because this is actually one of the biggest problems with World of Tanks, at least in my opinion. It's the map design, and this is something that my opinion went downhill on from the release of 1.0 onwards, and it's something that was probably in the works by Wargaming from before 1.0 ever released, and something that they were working on for a long time. So why do I dislike maps as they are right now? Well, not even just the maps themselves, but the whole design language around them. I say design language, but the way that they're put together. Let's have a look, shall we? And in a word, stagnant. Because often what you can find is that you find that like certain strats for what your team do and where they go work better than on other maps. Now, obviously, like we still have the thing where, even if your team does take some of the better positions, are they good enough players to use those positions? You can still lose from good positions, but that does not mean that those positions make make the map any better. And so let's take a look and see what makes maps in World of Tanks bad. Wargaming, when they went into 1.0, they went in with the mind when they were developing it. They went in with the mindset of trying to make a position for every tank class. Now that could be, like raised positions with bushes, like for TDs to snipe from. It could be, areas for light tanks to rush into a bush that could spot people, like trying to cross somewhere. They even thought, okay, let's put a bunch of buildings somewhere for heavy tanks to brawl around, and that's kind of their way of thinking. And when it comes to developing maps, they tend to start with a corridor and go, okay, what's this corridor for? What's this corridor for? And what's this corridor for? And and the problem with that is it leads to maps, well, like the one that we've got right in front of us here. Abbey is a good example of a 3 corridor map that has each corridor designed for a different class of tank. And let's take ourselves a little look on this side here. So this area here, this is of course where they designed the heavy tank brawling area to be. Now, obviously, when it comes to heavy tanks, not all of them are designed to brawl. Obviously, you've got something like the AMX 5100, which is more like a fat medium with a big clip. And the problem with this side is that you get locked into kind of a head-to-head fight with some people around this corner, some people around this corner, and this corner, with hold down positions on each side. That is stagnant because it often becomes a war of who can just get lucky with their shots into lower plates or cupolas, and there's not really any dynamic to it at all. There's no flanking. There's just hope that someone pushes forward into like 2-3 guns and dies, and just hope that the enemy team keep doing that. Now, obviously, there is the fact that the middle here can shoot through here if people try and push. Now, the issue there becomes if people realize that the enemy team have taken here, then they just won't push this area at all. And then it becomes a match where get lucky if your team wins the middle or not. No match should be like that. No match should be, oh, they won X position, now we lose like the entire rest of the map. That should never be the case in any game. In any competitive game, player versus player game, you should never have your maps be where one position dictates the outcome of a match. And we'll get onto more maps that are like that later on. But definitely, this middle position can have a massive influence on the outcome of any match on Abby. And now, obviously, people can still mess up. They can still maybe not take out anyone that's left down here. You know, there's definitely things that can change the outcome of that. Which team wins that? But realistically, the whole what decides a match is who can control both sides, both corridors, this one and this one, through the use of, well, here in the end. Because if, let's say, team number 2 here, let's say they've gone down this way and they've gotten to here. Let's say team number 1 have gotten to here. And obviously, let's assume that they're just, both teams are ignoring the bottom part. Let's just say that they're both ignoring that and they're just stubbornly fighting it out on this corner and this corner, which does happen, by the way. And then let's say that team number 2 has managed to take here, and team number 1 has had their mediums either go and support the heavies on the left or tried to go down the right here. Now, what happens then is that team number 2, having people in here, even if it's only like a couple of tanks, they can have one person that shoots out that way to stop team number 1 from really making a particularly strong push from here up this road. They can also shoot at people in this little selection of houses here and be fairly safe in doing so. Because they have, you know, they've got the ability to be hulled down here, depending on what tank you're in. They've got a couple of bushes here. They've got hard cover as well. It's a very, very safe position. And on top of that, you have an alternate area you can peek right here. And that is really only usable against people who are around here. This general area. They can also then shoot into the heavy tank side and through that gap, through that gap, through that gap. Now what then happens is, let's say team number 2 has, you know, let's say they have a couple of people that got tired of sitting on this corner and they decide to push to the little rock that's like right here. They will get spotted by anyone on this corner. What will then happen is, as they get to here, if anyone is paying attention from the middle, they'll take a shot from there. If they don't fall back immediately, they might get shot through there. And then that's when they get to the little rock. Now, they then are stuck in a position where if they try and side scrape, they have, you know, they have to worry about, can these people who might well be hulled down easily hit my lower plate or cupola if I'm side scraping or angling around that corner in any way? You guys can see where I'm going with this. It does the same going the other way as well, by the way. The same thing happens. Because both sides here and here can be completely hauled down against the middle here. And again, it just means that any attempt at moving stops. Now, we're going to see like a lot of things here. What could be done to improve the dynamics of Abby? Well, there's a couple of things. For one, viable routes between these two roads. So a way that you can maybe like get to here and then go across like that, or get to here and go across like that. Maybe a little extra like hard cover, maybe some dead tanks in the middle here. And also on top of that, this entire like mountain face is within the map border. So they could do away with that and then just expand this whole lower part here. And on top of that, the alternative, if they want to keep some rocks around here, just make another road around here. You've got the space for it within the map border. Why not use it? And then on top of that, let's say let's keep these, right? Because that does at least add a way for let's say team 1 is winning this side. Team 2, if they have the middle, that gives them a way to try and help their teammates survive and against the hard push up this road. So adding another way down here gives a bit more variety in what heavy tank players can do over here. On top of that, when we get to this side and this side, when you look at it, when you get further round this way, right round here, this area has a good position for people to shoot down on you, whereas you don't really get the same here. Well, you do but only when you get here. You can see on the very bottom here, but by that time, people in the base can already shoot there, so it's like it feels kind of irrelevant. Whereas this side can keep dunking on people going around this road if they have the gun depression for it, all the way around until they get to that base. Now, obviously, that's if whoever goes around that way doesn't have anyone pushing here. Maybe Team 2 has been able to hold here for a little bit. Maybe they've got a couple of tanks that are just stopping people from pushing there, and then Team 1 has decided to try and go around this way instead. What happens then is, of course, if there's a spare tank with the gun depression from Team 2 here, they can just dunk on whoever goes around this way constantly. And by that time, if there's anyone left in the base, let's say around the little tower here, they're then going to start shooting at them as well. So it becomes very, very difficult at times for teams to push into any useful spot at all. Then, of course, we've got the issue of, well, what if whichever players are on this heavy side want to get into the middle in some reasonable way? There's not really any reasonably safe way. You have to try and take the risk of dipping into the water here in the right position, which you have to try and use the middle part or the left part for. And then you have to make sure your tank is fast enough to get here so it doesn't drown. And then you have to climb up into here, which doesn't give you many options for leaving the little lake area. And what they could do instead is add a couple of more, and obviously as well, on top of that, basically if you try and cross, you're just completely in the open. So what they could do is, with this set of rocks here, is they could add like a little ramp area or something going down this way. And the same here. With this set of rocks here, they could just add a ramp section going here. Now, that then allows for people to come back from here and start trying to play around into the middle if that's the area that they need to focus on. Let's say there's like absolutely no one from Team 2 here. That would then allow Team 1 to try and actually, relocate in an effective manner and try and reinforce whoever's in the middle there. Which would then mean you'd actually have an actual brawl in that middle section. Which is, of course, what buildings are for. They're like you're placing those there as a brawling area, for an area for people to try and angle their arm around corners and punish people for bouncing their shots. That's what that's for. But if you can't really use that because like something's going on here, then it becomes worthless. It becomes like an afterthought, really. So it's a bit frustrating in that manner. On top of that, this road is just, it might as well not be there. The only reason that you could ever use this road is as a shortcut late game. Now, there is a way to actually make this useful. Wargaming, what they could do is add a little more cover around, say, here, maybe some tank wrecks or something, or some rocks scattered around these open areas between the middle buildings and each of the flags. And what they could then do as well is add little ramps, going up and down these buildings, from either side. You don't have like just having the one in the middle that goes up to the buildings and then that's it is pretty unimaginative. So what they could do is, they could have a little ramp here that leads up. You don't necessarily need one going down the other side because you do have that one in the middle. But realistically, you should include one at either side of these little sets of buildings. And what that would mean is that, you'd have the option for people to then, if the situation calls for it, they could then, like, let's say if they've just, won the heavy side, they can come around here and then go and help anyone that's left fighting in the middle here. Instead of having to go, all the way around like that, or if they've managed to get to the opposite base, let's say Team 1 have gone to Team 2 and they want to try and help any teammates that they have fighting on this road here, then that could mean they could go, like this instead of all the way around like that, which again, it's just frustrating for people. It doesn't need to be like that. Next, we then have, well, again, like there's a lack of like options in terms of what you can traverse. Like just having, one exit here, that just becomes too much of a choke point. Again, those ramps do help with that, but you could add another one here if you wanted to as a designer. That one's less essential than the ramps here and here, I would say, if you were to add those. Next, we have issues on this road. This is the only cover, really. So it becomes a bit of a rush to control this area. I would say that having this whole like bed of water is completely worthless. It takes, you can see that, you guys can see yourselves like how much of the map area this is actually taking up. This is all within the map border, by the way. All of this is in the map border. And do we need this in the map border? The answer is no. It's set dressing that is not needed within the map border. You're going to see me say this a lot, by the way. This is going to be a long video as well. So yeah, why not just make more like land that you can actually go to here? Like instead of having this all water, why not just extend this, bring all this back out of here, right? Let's just kick all this out of the map. And then like maybe have the water just out of the map. Make all this a lot more expanded. Have some more cover, bushes, whatever you feel like, just, or both. You could have like a slightly more open area with less cover than this side, but you could then add more bushes for like things like light tanks, tank destroyers. You could actually make it interesting instead of just, lol, we have one road and that's it. I mean, you can argue that light tanks can go here, but that's pretty obvious. And like while having a little gap here and here is fine, it doesn't really add anything interesting to this side of the map at all. So there's that. Then on top of that, you have the lack of like reasonable defensive positions, and for this side of this capture area, if you look at it, top spawn number 2 has this area, which can be a pain in the backside to remove people from. Yeah, I'm saying backside because I don't want to get demonetized. People like here can be a nightmare to dig out if you have not got control of that line. That should not be the case because it's very, very strong against even people that are going here. You've got bushes right here you can use to basically hold off people on that choke point. It can be really, really annoying. But you don't really have that over here. It's just kind of, well, you've got this little platform with a bush, and that's basically all you have. That's it. Like, there's nothing really particularly strong about anyone who's able to, like, any position that is, able to defend here. If someone's, like, say, gotten to, like, this ramp, or even to here. So, they could add like something similar to this, or they could even just take that away completely, and that would make both sides fairly balanced, which is realistically what's needed. And but yeah, that's Abbey. And let's have a look at Airfield. Now, this is the old version of Airfield. The website I'm using for these is called whattactic.com, and they haven't added a new version of Airfield here, but the problem remains the same. Now, with Airfield, you now have this little balcony moved kind of further this way. You've got a road like going that way that has more cover here. You got more cover over this side, but what we're looking at again is a map with a lot of wasted space. Remember, all of this mountain range, is all within the map border when it doesn't need to be. So they could definitely expand that side. They could even add little roads going like, around the mountains, that could actually be pretty cool. On top of that, like while they've introduced like more cover around here for people, the issue is the way that they've done it. And which means that for, in this case, spawn number 2, you've only got this position that can really shoot into like where the cover is now, which is like right here. But then spawn number 1 has this position, which has become very, very strong indeed against anyone who goes into either of the areas around there. Again, that makes it kind of a one-sided map in terms of what each team has. So, yeah, on top of that, this area is just a death zone. Still. Now, obviously, they are planning on making dynamic map changes later on to this map. Obviously, they tease, like all the like water kind of draining away, like with the tide going out. But the issue there becomes, well, is that still gonna be? Is that gonna make it more usable? And even then, it shouldn't rely on just a random map event, like making it any good to actually play on. Because what happens is when you currently, and this is still true, you go down this way, you get to maybe here at best, and you start getting shot from here. If you're coming from spawn number 2, if you're going the other way, you're gonna get shot from here, like quite a bit, or from here, quite a bit that way. But then when you get around to say here, or if you're going the other way, if you get to here, you're gonna get shot by even now with the changed versions of the balconies, you're gonna get shot from here and here, and you're not gonna have a good time. It becomes just Crossfire City, and that means there's still probably gonna be people in the middle shooting you as well around here and here. It's yeah. It feels like this part of the map is just an afterthought. What they could do is add some more cover around this area. Again, the water really does not need to be in the map border at all. Just extending this, adding more routes up to here and here, more cover around here would make that infinitely better. And obviously, we've still got the airstrip. It's kind of the theme of the map. What they could do is push that further this way. Obviously, again, like I said, we don't need any of these mountains. They could push the airfield that way, add way more rocks for people to brawl around. Still, you can add angles where people can shoot maybe like from here to here, or to like there. You've still got options. You could even create new spots that can shoot maybe that way, or this way, this way, this way. You have things you can do where, as a map designer, when you actually have space to more space to work with. This is just a waste of space. So yeah, airfield completely lots of wasted space there, lots of wasted potential. That's a Grand Battles map. The Grand Battles maps I don't play, so I don't really have a way to comment on them right now, so I'm gonna leave that one. Arctic region, also known as Mannerheim Line. Oh boy, this one's a frustrating map to play on. So I'm gonna look at this one in a couple of ways. One, you have an issue where pushing either base from the south it's just completely pointless. Trying to actually use the south past a certain point, unless you're, spawn number 1 here and you manage to go around this way and get to this little spot right here, and it becomes a suicide mission effectively. So what they really need to do, I feel like, is remove some of the dumber positions, or at least nerf them. Like up here in this top little corner here, by the little bunker, that just should not have the number of bushes it does. It should not be so strong. You've already got pretty decent defensive positions all the way along this little ridge line. You do not need this bullshit up here. Well, there goes my monetization. This just should not exist. It makes actually playing the game on this map an absolute nightmare if you are spawn number 2. And obviously this heavy tank area is absolutely cursed as well, because if you are spawn number 2 and you get spotted like going this way, guess what can slap you? Yeah, you have that. You do not have that from the other side. If you have, because like that's just part of your normal thing. You're not even like at the area where you fight yet. If you're spawn number 2, if you get sniped here, and realistically, what they need to do here is kind of like make this stronger against like areas around here. They need to give it more angles against stuff like around this area. I would argue the same for this. Needs to have a little more access to shooting people like around here and around here, and a little bit more safely as well. I would argue for both of these. They're pretty open. And what they could do is add a lot more cover around here. What they could also do is just do away with the water. See, this is like a whole corner of the map wasted. Absolutely wasted. Like, you could have just like a low road, like you could start like here. You could have another bit going in here, like ramps here, here. And you could have this entire area as like areas with loads and loads and loads of rocks. You could make it like a like Glacier, where it's like an ice lake, but you've got like shipwrecks and rocks and like bits of big chunks of ice sticking up through it. You could make that really cool, and just have like the actual water part, outside of the map, and just a set dressing. And then see, for these big rocks here, you could then have like, I don't know, you could have like a tunnel, or you could have or it could be split into like 3 chunks or something, and you could have like you could have one way going in here, and then you could have like another road coming out here, another one coming out here. You have things that you can do with this as a developer, a map designer as well. And then you could do the same here as well. Like, you could have like a little route coming this way, you could have it split off and go that way, and it has the space to do that. And as far as this goes, I feel like this needs a little bridge or something. And again, like, just for like a bit of like an alternate option of getting across this. And I feel like this is something that you could add a little tunnel to, and then you could actually like come to and from either side here, actually have something interesting. Like, you could maybe even if you're coming down from this side, you can maybe have a little tunnel coming in this way, and then you can like pop out here or here. And then of course we have the absolutely massive waste of space mountain over here that you could like do away with and create a lot more space to work with over here and make it a lot more interesting. Then you have a completely wasted bit of space here. Like, why do we have this water in? What purpose does this serve? None. Get it out of the map. Expand this area. It'd be pretty neat to have a little brawling area around here. Like, I think that's what they were thinking initially, with this little road going down like this and coming back up here, or either way. You have like so many options on maps like this. Well, so many options on maps, full stop, and they're just kind of like not really making use of what they have. And Cliff, again, look how much of the area within the map border is wasted. You know how like good this could be if you turned all of this into somewhere you could I don't know, you could have like this position able to shoot across this way as well, and same with this one. But you could have like a nice big area full of lots of areas you can brawl with heavy tanks, or mediums could go out there. Light tanks, you've got loads of space here that is just so utterly wasted, and you can still have the cliff area like at this like out of the map border as set dressing. Like, what are you doing, Wargaming? On top of that, I feel like this area as well, having either only access from here and here is a bit wasted. I feel like you could add a ramp here and a ramp here. Maybe add some more cover here, here. You know, would make that a little bit more interesting around this area instead of just what we have right now, which is generally where like light tanks or mediums will try and rush to take here, and then they'll try and like snipe people from here across to here or here across to here. And yeah, I also kind of feel like the routes up the hill could be a little more interesting. I feel like those could maybe like have one going around the far side and coming back up here. You've got ways of like extending that as well. Again, you can flatten some bits out and maybe add a little road. And on either side, it could branch off, say here, come around the side of it, and then it could come up here with maybe like one slightly steep but still accessible road here and another one here. Like you then have like a hill area, a lighthouse area that you can actually play for instead of just hope you don't get shot, which is currently the case. And yeah, and then obviously what the problem with this line is that it's very tempting for heavy players to just kind of go here and here, and they just kind of get stuck, just hoping for someone to try and spot over here, or someone to get themselves spotted over here or over here and just get farmed. Adding more cover around here would kind of improve that situation. So maybe like an extra couple of rocks here, here, here. It doesn't have to be anything big. And then obviously you do need a little bit of open space, like so this is fine, this is fine, this area is fine, this is fine. So yeah, again, Cliff, lots of wasted potential. And I'm not gonna look at Dragon Ridge because that's been out of the game for so long, it's kind of hard to tell. Also, I haven't played it in so long, so I can't really comment on that one. But there are maps where I've got better memories of playing on that I can actually, talk about. And we'll get to those in a little bit. And we'll talk about why those maps were better than what we have right now in terms of design. El Holuf. El Holuf is a weird one. Again, we've got some wasted space with the mountain back here and the whole like water area here that you could use to expand like defensive positions here for spawn number 2, and this area for like expanding the whole map in general. You could have like extra roads coming up this way and this way. You could have a bunch of cover around here. You could actually make this interesting. You could actually make this fun. Add a bunch more cover here. Like you could make this viable for our mediums, light tanks, and heavies. This is very, very doable. And on top of that, the rest. I feel like the rest of this map is actually not too bad. This is like probably one of the better maps in the game. And obviously, this side of the map, I feel like the way that they did the elevation before 1.0 was a lot better. It gave you a bit more variety, like how like areas that were a bit more flat versus what were a bit more like rounded and steep, were a little better done. And before 1.0, maybe that's just my opinion, but yeah, I do feel like that was better done then. Um, I feel like what they could do is they could extend this part here further this way, so then this becomes an actual ramp up and down instead of just like a cliff face. So then if your team are like holding here and they're starting to push this way, but you're like a light tank down here and you want to help, then you can like go up into here or something. Or if your team have won here and you want to like go down into the middle and try and go around this way, let's say you're in a medium tank that you've been helping the heavies with. Like if you're here in a medium tank, let's say, and your team has started winning here, but you want to try and like get into the middle and go around this way, then make that into an actual ramp instead of, the really sharp drop that we have now that really only serves to really shoot like to here, and maybe to here if you're lucky. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about El Holif. It's overall it's not a terrible map, but there's still some potential that that could make it. I feel like could make it a bit more interesting. Ensk. Now the biggest issue I have with Ensk is that it's just too small for the tiers that it sees. If they want to keep it at the size that it is, I feel like they need to reduce the maximum tier that it sees to maybe tier 5. Because matches at higher tiers tend to have so much view range, so much armor, and such a higher pace that lower tiers tend to so the lower tiers tend to extend it a bit more. Extend matches, make them a bit more interesting. Higher tier matches are just kind of, as soon as one side, takes one team takes wins a side, it's over. Like it can be over so quickly. And so yeah, they could reduce it to tier 5 as the highest tier. There are some mismatched parts as well. Spawn number 1 gets this position, which is very strong for stopping people from pushing down the one line here, up and down here. Whereas spawn number 2 gets some destructible buildings and maybe a tree. Like, what the fuck, Wargaming? Like, they could absolutely remove this, or at least, add something similar to this over here, and it would actually be not a bad decision. I do feel like removing this would be better. Maybe just having a couple of destructible buildings like that over here instead. Not like all of these, but like maybe just for this one. And I do feel like having more routes between the trains would make this map more interesting. So then, if a side, if a team wins this side, then they could come through here, go through here, maybe come through from here into here. Give them ways through the trains. Maybe remove a couple of the train cars, or have a couple of them be destructible or something. There's options here. Ways that you could maybe if someone goes to here but they want to cross over this way, have it so then maybe you've got a broken flatbed train car around here that you can cross over or something. Make a couple of those, and then you could easily make this into a more interesting map. I also feel like what they could do is for this great big long building here is they could also have maybe a part of it that's been destroyed around here that you can then cross through. Yeah, I think that's really the main thing that's needed on this side. And I feel like for the most part, the heavy tank side over here, because let's face it, most of the time that's heavies brawling, is okay for the most part. The only bit that I don't really like is in a standard battle, spawn number 1 gets an extra hold down position here to use against here and here and here. And yeah, it's one of those that I feel like they could fill these out, or create more like areas like this here, and just make a little gap here for team number 2, because team number 1 can go through here and get to these very safely. Team number 2, you cannot get into here safely at all. And with this is the only comparable position on team number 2, I feel like that's a bit unfair. So that's definitely a change I would like to see on Ensk. But otherwise, that's pretty much it for Ensk. There's not much to say about. It's a very small map. So yeah. Also, excuse me, guys. I do have to adjust my chair constantly because it's broken. Erlenberg. Erlenberg is one of those that they they tried something different with it going into 1.0. Again, it's one of those where what they tried is simply try again. It's the whole way of trying to create a place for every tank class, which doesn't work because what you end up getting is camping positions, camping positions. You push, you die. You push, you die. Over on those sides. On top of that, you push this way, you tend to die because camping position here, and the same on the other side. You've got camping positions here as well and here. So, what could they do to Erlenberg to make it better? Well, for one, I would prefer that the old layout of Erlenberg was adopted, and then on top of that, what they could do is add more cover like around here and around here, here. You know, like they've got options for where they can add stuff. Old Erlenberg, I feel like you had a lot more potential for active play, for actually moving around the map. Obviously, Heavy still had the city on the old Erlenberg that they could fight around should they desire, but I feel like it was a more interesting map as a whole. And on top of that, the castle in the old Erlenberg was just literally this here. It was just the castle, none of the extra walls. So I feel like you had a lot more like space to like go up and down into like ridge lines around this whole area than you do now. Now it did still have the issue of like areas of water that were just kind of served no purpose, but this tends to be Wargaming's MO. They have areas that are just kind of like wasted either. Like they had that back in before 1.0 as well. That was an issue before then. This area just really to me seems pointless. Like this whole little corner here just seems like they could do away with that and actually make, give more land for people to go across, or at the very least, make it all shallow water that you can just drive through easily, without it really slowing you down. Um, this is a bit of a problem because this is very easy for Team 2 to access here, and very difficult for Team 1 to use. I feel like they could just put some rocks around here, remove the water, make this a bit more interesting. Um, they don't have to have that. This is just completely unneeded as a bush cover position. Doesn't really add anything. And what they should do, in my opinion, is something similar to this. This is actually not bad because this gives Team 2, if they can get to here, it gives them a way to counter this area, which you don't really have on the other side. I think the other side, this side, where if spawn number 1 was going up this way, if they had like, an extra couple of houses around here for cover, maybe like an extra ridge line like this would give them like a way to, fight back against people that were sniping from these bushes, Um, the next part as well is if you look at it, you don't have this type of position for spawn number 1. The reason why I say that is because this is a very strong position to counter people here. Now, obviously, this is not the most up-to-date version of the map. There is another house here, and you don't really have the same shots they used to in the initial version before 1.0, but you still have very good shots from this spot all the way out to the hill here. You can shoot all the way out to here. You don't really have that from any of this area. Yeah, there's a couple of positions that can shoot towards, here, roughly. But that's about it. It's not very interesting. And even then, this can very easily shoot back. There's not really any way to be safe doing any kind of shots from here out to around here. So this position, not only can you be somewhat hull down with the rubble that's here, but you have bushes as well. So yeah, it would be nice to see them kind of improve what you can do around the city in general. I feel like they could extend buildings a bit further either way. Um, I feel like on top of that, this side, if you take the like this area, spawn number 2 gets very easy shots of people trying to, you know, go around this way when you don't have the same going from spawn number 2 around this way. Well, you kind of do, but you have to go much further from spawn 1. Well, it feels like much further. It's a weirder route. It's less safe. You can't go hull down as easily. And on top of that, all these buildings are non-destructible. This has destructible buildings. So yeah, I feel like this is just so safe going here if you've got turret armor, because you can hide from like so many people here. If they even try and peek you from like here, they're gonna get shot from here. They're gonna get shot from the campers. It's one of those where spawn number 2 I feel like is so much stronger in most of its matches that it can be very difficult for spawn number 1 to really do much. So definitely I feel like they could change a few things about cover that's available around here, and maybe raise this ridge a bit so then this position doesn't get just dunked on from here from the city for no reason whatsoever. Or they could lower this a little bit. They have options there. Maybe lower this hill a little bit, raise this one a little bit more, and they could also extend this hill this way a bit. Maybe add a bit more cover around here, because this is a massive open area for people who are here to just dunk on you from. If you're like coming from spawn 1, you've maybe won the city, but as soon as you try and leave here, you're going to get dunked on from people here. And if you are camping, then you have to hope that no one comes around here and just dunks on you from this position, because you have to hope that your team has also won this area. Because if your team's won city and has just progressed to the cap circle, you're going to get farmed. It's the same on both sides for that, but I feel like they could add a bit more cover for the cap circles in general. But maybe that's just me. Make it a bit more like interesting as far as like what people have to do to like reset the cap. Let's see. Fisherman's Bay. Fisherman's Bay used to be a lot more interesting before 1.0. And this is like a broken record at this point, but um before 1.0, you had a lot more buildings around the middle. I feel like these extended for a little further this way and a little further, and you had actually, yeah, you definitely had more around here. And on top of that, you had fewer angles where positions like here and here could shoot into the middle little village area from. And it felt like you'd actually play around here and like peak angles, and you didn't have some of the dumb bushes that you have now. That this is really strong, but then because of how close you are, this and this are kind of weak. And so yeah, like it just increased. Like I would say they just need to add a few extra buildings. Maybe make it so then people camping here and here, maybe here, have a more difficult time of shooting people that are just trying to play around the village in general. Because from this is from memory, every time I played Fisherman's Bay in the past, it was these positions here and here were more for stopping people that were already coming out of the village towards your cap circle. And let's say I started on spawn number 2. Let's say I went to here. I was trying to play around like this area. What would happen was if I was then trying to like push through, let's say we'd killed everyone that was in there, and I was trying to like move towards these rocks, or this rock, or this house. This position would have a field day trying to shoot at me, and so yeah, I feel like uh there could be more done to increase like cover around the middle village, hard cover, of course, and so that's something that could definitely look at, that they should look into. And again, we have some wasted space, like on every map. Way too much water around here. I get that it's meant to have this little marina area here, a little dock area, but I also still feel like, well, this is a waste. You could have like a little area extended here for like more buildings. You could have this coming out this way, and then you could have more buildings around here. You could have maybe even just like a little bridge or something along here or something, like a little drawbridge sort of thing. You know, like, or even like around here. And if they're gonna do the random event thing, maybe have that drawbridge like, you know, raise up or go or fold down at different points in the match. You know, it's something that they've got options for. Uh, Otherwise, this area and this area here, I don't have many complaints about. Um, yeah, it just feels like it's mostly my complaints are around the middle, more than anything else. The middle and then the 1-2 line. I do also feel like if they added more like cover around the middle village, then people rushing the one line would struggle a lot more to spot and shoot at the people in the middle, which I feel like would improve the quality of matches quite a lot. In fact, I do feel like a one line rush, if one team goes up that lane, can very quickly gain an upper hand, which shouldn't be the case. You shouldn't have, you know, one just absolute brainless rush be the deciding factor of a match. You know, and so I feel like what they could do is uh they could actually just raise like this area up a bit, so then if they get to say here, then it's a lot more easy for people to shoot from, say, let's say they spotted them and then they can come back to like a building here or something, like extend this little building a little bit and then shoot like from here out to here. And so it's a lot more risky to do a one line push either in either direction. Like they could do the same here as well, and like raise the like literally just raise up the whole area around the windmill. I think that would actually be something that could actually be like you're taking a genuine risk to try and spot people out here early game, instead of like you know relying on you know your people over here like the entire rest of the map winning, which you know you should be trying to like win the rest of the map. Fjords, fjords is so disappointing to me. One, obviously, we've got massive waste of space all across the map because all of this is in the map border. So, where to begin? One, this spawn is just so strong a lot of the time. This wins, this spawn wins more matches than loses for a couple of reasons. One, you have way stronger positions if you win here. If you have people who rush into here, they manage to take people out who are here. If you have people up here as well, then guess what happens? This area gets spotted and they get shot by a crossfire. By people up here, and they'll go across that way. By people here, go across that way. They'll probably also have taken here, go across that way. And of course, these positions can also shoot into there. Because, of course, they can. What can this side do? Well, if they manage to hold this area, then they can shoot this way a little bit. They can shoot down this road to here. But the problem there is, if their teammates here are not winning that side, then it does not matter, because what will happen is they'll come around this way, and then eventually they'll get to here. So if you have no one like paying attention and is already back here, then what'll happen is the heavies will just come around here, dunk on people here, go in here, and you're kind of screwed. Then obviously we've got uh this side this side of the map. So, currently if spawn number 2 does manage to go up here and take this, then they've got, they do have good usage of that middle road here. But the issue is that itself becomes a gamble, because then you have to hope that this side here is being held pretty well. If it's not, then if you come down this way, you're going to get dunked on by people from here, which will mean the people here will then know, which will mean that they'll probably then look for it, wait for you, and then they'll probably get the killing blow on you. And I mean, you can push down this way as well, so that is an option. So if you do manage to get down here, then you'll probably win if you're our spawn number 2. And but you again, you kind of have to get a little bit lucky at times with that. Your defensive positions, however, spawn 2 over here, particularly around here, are very, very strong. Maybe just a bit too strong. Obviously, defending against the push from the heavy side is very easy, because if you have anyone spotting, you can be here sniping them basically the whole way down from like here almost. Like you can like start sniping them right when they get to this rock, and if they keep going, you're gonna have constant shots on them from here the whole time. Like there, there. It's pretty crazy. And then obviously if they start getting too close, you can always run away to here. And when they get to here, you'll just start dunking on them. And like they'll get to this rock here maybe, but then if they peek, you'll probably have enough bush cover that they won't be able to see you if you double bush. So yeah. And what does this side have? Not much actually. That's particularly strong for defensive positions. I mean, you've got sort of hold down area over like here, I guess. Maybe over here. Here, if you're lucky. Yeah, pretty much if the enemy team gets to here, there's not much you can do. If they get to like up around here, you're dead. And you just have to hope that you have teammates up and down here who can, get side shots in them from like there, there. But then the issue becomes is that anyone you have around here is probably going to get dunked on by people hold down around here. So then you have to hope you got someone here who can shoot them in the side there or around here. I feel like this is a result of them going for, like a look of a map, wanting to make it like, a little fishing village here that you've got little dock areas from, like having all the way they would come out here. But I don't think it works, because again, you have so much wasted potential in terms of space you can use as a designer, that you could have like a whole extra road going like around, or area to fight around, going all around here at the very least for like heavy. So instead of having like a straight face to face slugging battle here, which is what it is right now, which is very boring, um, you could have, like a little road coming from here. You could have like a whole bunch of like separate, like you could have a whole bunch of different little roads here that could shoot at each other, or like bunch of different rocks that people can, work their tanks around, angle around. Maybe little couple of little ridges if you want to give little spot for something like a Kranwagen where they can go hull down. You've got options there. Over here, you've got options to add lots of little like rocks, or you could add like crashed ships that you could maybe try and drive your tank onto, drive across. You've got options there. Maybe little pontoon bridges, that can come across from here, or all the way there, or like across to there, across to there, all the way like this way, this way. You've got a lot you can do there. And then when you get to this side, well, why can't we just have this area as just a nice big area that we can play around, and just chuck all the water out of the map and have it as like just a nice area to look at. You can still have like maybe a small bit of water around here just to show this, but I'll have it all like really, really shallow. so you can showcase the little shipwreck there. Just have it so then like all this is like at the very worst just like a slightly damp, very incredibly shallow water area that you can play around. Add lots more rocks, shipwrecks. You can make this really interesting. Even add more bushes like over here or over here, should you wish to do so as the developer, or even over here. Problem with the massive hills as well. Like they dominate so much of the map in terms of like how much space they take up. You could have a whole nother road out here. You could have multiple roads going through this one. That you could even have like little tunnels going through this one that all meet each other. Like I think that would be pretty cool if you had like a whole kind of interchange sort of area in here where tanks, if they were coming in here, would have to kind of fight it out and try and stop each other from coming through, and that would give a bit of versatility to this whole side of the map. Next, we don't need this area. Why is this water deep? Just raise things up a little bit, make it a little more useful as an area you can have rocks around and defend your cap circle from. Easy clap. On top of that, this hill. Well, you could have like like a little tunnel section coming from here, going to here, or even just like from the top here going to here. And again, like there's things you can do to make these maps more interesting, more fun. Like I'm just like thinking of ideas off the top of my head, by the way. But like at the moment, the matches just don't really, in some ways, just get really stagnant. This is the old version of Ghost Town here. So this is the old version of Ghost Town. This was before 1.0. This map I feel like was an actual interesting idea where you had a lot of ways you can go in and around the town, which is a bit too small. So I feel like if they expanded the town a lot more on the current version of Ghost Town, they could they could actually have something really interesting. But I feel like it's a little boring at the moment. But again, that's the same with almost all of them. Highway. Highway is a frustrating one as well. I feel like the most interesting area to fight is the town most of the time. Depends what you're in, of course, but you will almost never see me go over here at the moment. Because, to be fair, at the moment I'm not playing particularly like mobile tanks, but I feel like this area here is just whoever controls this little hill first wins this entire side, and it shouldn't really feel like that. I really feel like if they lower this hill down, so then people can't just tuck their way in there so easily, or if there's maybe a couple extra houses here, a couple extra bushes or something along the way, you or even like add a bit more cover like here, like so then people can actually from spawn number 2 can actually come down here safely and actually fight around here. Maybe more buildings here, extend this little village area. It could be a lot more interesting. It would mean that you just wouldn't get farmed so hard if you even dared to like peek yourself around here, because people will get spotted at this exact building all the time, and from this bush right here, bam, bam, dead. That means any support that this side can get cut off very, very easily. Yeah. On top of that, defensive positions around the cap circles are on both sides kind of ass. With the exception of these bushes, which can be a little annoying to push through, to push towards, in fact, because when you get to here, you do get some good shots from here against people pushing around here. Though obviously that's what this area is to counter. I feel like this is probably the better one to defend most of the time against the city. Obviously, it's hard to defend if the enemy team gets to this ridge. But the other side, it's just hard to defend, full stop. You have this hill, these bushes, this ridge. That's about it. If the enemy team get down into here, which they can absolutely do if they win this, because they can come down this way, straight into here, and they are here. Now, that then kind of invalidates this position and this position immediately, and only really leaves here and the buildings, a lot of which are destructible. And that means if your team are not winning city as well, if your team's just kind of getting dumpstered, you have no option for it. You have no way to make a comeback. You have no way to really kind of mount any kind of defense. And particularly because this can also spot out to here, which is meant to counter here. So, and also if they take here, then they can just go all the way around here, and then they can spot this bush as well, which is also meant for countering push from the city. So, yeah, kind of frustrating there. I feel like this little village needs to be extended a little bit this away. I feel like this, like getting to here, needs to be a bit more risky. Like, I feel like they need to remove some of the bushes, like around it, because it does make it very difficult at times to spot people going here. I also kind of feel like there needs to be a little more hard cover around here and around here, mainly for light tank players, because if you get caught in the open around here or around here, like especially early game, if you get caught in those areas, you're dead. You are just dead. Uh, so it becomes one of those maps where there's a lot of space that is just a dead zone. The city. Now, what annoys me is that this little building gets a hold down position against basically anyone peeking any of these three little areas here, here, and here. And it can even go hold down somewhat against here as well. Other side does not have that. So I feel like what they could really do is add some like little like piles of rubble here and there, maybe like some like wrecked tanks. What they could maybe do as well is add a couple extra buildings around here, so then you've got a little more area to play around. Um, and maybe also like make it so then this position doesn't have such an easy time sniping straight down here, pretty much, and straight down here. So I feel like the city could be a lot more interesting as well, and that goes for both sides. I feel like as well, it can be a rush to take this corner for either team, because people can then side scrape around this building, like this building right here. They can side scrape and shoot people here, and then if you're going the other way, get to here, side scrape, shoot people here. Although obviously this side actually gets some neat little gaps you can tuck into and then counter side scrape, so you do have that. There's also kind of a needless like bush or tree around here that stops like easy spotting of this lane, which is just really weird. But they could remove that, and it would be interesting to like actually have people fight for once there. Yeah, it's just a weird one. Like for an area where you want people to brawl, it's very difficult to brawl. There's not really many options. And where you can go there with your heavy tanks, you either go to this corner, like around these corners around here, or this corner, or around here for spawn number 2. For spawn number 1, you're going around here, 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 or of course there as well. That's it. That's it. Like you're basically hoping that the enemy team keeps peeking in a bad way and then getting punished for it. Like if you are here, you can try and go here, but then the issue becomes, well, once you get here, you don't really have any option other than side scraping, and then if someone is here, then you're gonna get dunked on, so you can get shot here and here. It's just it's just one of those where your options are few and none of them are good. So I feel like they could expand the town a bit, well, the actual like factory city area could expand this way a little bit. They could expand this little village this way, or even this way a little bit, just vertically this way. Maybe add a little bit of cover for light tanks here and here, like around these open areas. And I feel like as well the TD positions for spawn number 2 are just not as strong as the ones that spawn number 1 has. Which this is very strong if no one spots it. This is very strong around here. And obviously this can be very strong. So definitely things that could be improved there. Himmelsdorf. Himmelsdorf is one of the maps that I don't have as many problems with again. But I feel like they could make it a little more interesting in terms of specific areas, in terms of like what you can do. The hill, for the most part, I don't mind. These days, obviously, you've got a lot more options when you get up there. You've got the little road bit that goes from here, it goes out here now, and then you've got more hull down cover around here. Same on this side, has like the hull down cover here. You know, like they made the hill fairly equal, which I actually really like. So, you know, actual clap for wargaming on that. But my issue then becomes, why does this side still get these two roads? Which means spawn number 2, if they win the hill, have a distinct advantage in terms of, you know, where they can go when coming down the hill. When spawn number 1, if they win the hill, it's a, you know, they can go that way, but it still links into a single road. So what I would like to see is, yeah, spawn number 2 gets this extra road, but I would like to see this extend, you know, like in a similar way to this side. Have a little bit that comes off there. Maybe have it go around down to here or something. You know? It doesn't have to be all the way this way. And on top of that, I feel like spawn number 2's, like the big buildings around here, add like nothing for them in terms of getting about. If you look at spawn number 1, look at all these little ways in and out of here. You know, like, how come spawn 1 gets this? Spawn 2 gets nothing. This is the same now. This is the same after the changes. So I feel like what they could do is they could destroy, like, have part of this big building here be destroyed. And you could even have like a path, like going, you could even have like almost a cross shape, you know, like that. Or even just have like that, or even like that, and then have that going just straight here and diagonally. You could do a lot with this. You know, you could have like destroyed parts of it that let you go like that or like that. You know, you can do a lot with this. This one, I feel like just maybe like a diagonal one this way, or like straight through here, or, you know, make a little like gap here, or something. You know, I think practically speaking, like a diagonal gap this way is probably better. These are fine. They're kind of similar to this in a way. And then what they could also do is spawn number 2 gets this little position here. So then if people are pushing the hill, well, they push down off the hill and they get to here, then they've got to deal with a halt down position. It's an actual good defensive position. Spawn number 1 could probably do with that. The church there adds a lot of cover for people capping, so maybe push that out of the map and like add a bit more cover for people defending. Like maybe break up this building a little bit around here and have like I don't know, some like piles of rubble or windows or something that you can shoot from that are for defending the cap circle against the hill. You know, that would be a nice way of like giving both sides something similar, but, you know, without you know, adjusting how you would play them too much. It would be familiar to players there. And as for this side, this is actually something that I feel like they're gonna fix pretty well with the random event that they've got planned, which is for a train to like come through here and then just get blown up, and all the train cars get scattered around. Because really at the moment it's just a case of who gets to here, wins here, and then gets to rush around back here and then just go around here, or vice versa. Like, it doesn't feel like there's anything really interesting there. So adding more ways to have cover there is actually a good thing. I just feel like it shouldn't be dictated by a random event. The random event that they've got for here, the Zeppelin crashing, that's coming with 1.20.1. That's not a bad addition, in my opinion. It does give you a way to kind of like slide down the hill here to kind of interact with people on the banana road down here, the banana around here. And so it at least provides something here that which could be pretty fun. So there is that. I don't think it's necessary, but I do think it could be interesting. And that's it for Himmelsdorf for me. Corellia is a weird one, right? I feel like if a team wins this whole side, especially if they get the hill early, they basically just win this whole side. Then there's not really an efficient way of stopping them from either side. More like this side has definitely worse opportunities than this side, but I feel like what they need to do is offer better routes around. I still feel like this area can be a pain for heavies. Like, you've got sniper positions here and here that are very strong and can really just decimate heavies that are just pushing either way, and here or here. So I feel like they could maybe expand some of the cover. Obviously, just get rid of this massive mountain here. Expand it this way. Why can't this just be outside of the map? And why can't you just expand this? Then you've got more options for literally everyone to play around this entire area. You could have TDs here. You could have TDs here. You could have loads of rocks and stuff around here. And you could have bushes all around here and here. And, people could try and, like, navigate around there, shoot up towards the hill. Like, make it make sense. Make it just more interesting in general. Like, instead of just having lane, snipe, snipe. Like, yeah, just hope for the best that your team wins this hill if you're trying to win this side. Obviously, this side is actually more interesting a lot of the time, but I also still feel like there's a little bit of unnecessary mountain range going on here that they could maybe extend that just a little bit and add a little bit more cover around there. Maybe add another rock here. Like, maybe make that, like, instead of like completely like different in terms of elevation, maybe have like another bit that goes up this way. Like, you've got things you can do here. I feel like overall though, Corellia is probably one of the maps that's like not particularly bad in terms of options, but can be frustrating at times depending where you have to go. I do feel like there's just a bit too many bushes in the middle. I get why there's so many, because obviously if you're in a light tank, then you want to go around there. Um, I do feel like they could add more routes up to the hill, like instead of having just gigantic blob mountains, they could add little mountain paths up to the hill here and up to the hill here, or even like from here around here. Like they could make that a little more interesting that way, and it would definitely mean this whole side would be even more interesting, because if you expanded this and then gave routes up to here, you could then certainly have a more interesting fight over here on your hands. I do feel like this area, once a team wins here, they get to here or here, it becomes quite stagnant unless you've got a light tank who can spot out here or here, because you just become cannon fodder for any of the TDs. So I feel like maybe they could add slightly better cover going down this way or going down this way. But that's not as I don't think that's the biggest deal, but it's something that they could do. And I do feel like it would be a slight improvement for this side. And the potential there is, of course, that it would add interesting position. You could add like more interesting positions around this whole side and this whole side for that as well, and it would certainly be more interesting for assault if you had to defend from there. Next we have Kharkov. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning Kharkov now, I know they've taken this out, the current version of this out for the moment because of the war in Ukraine. Uh, but I want to point this map out as being a good example of a map that was a lot more interesting before 1.0. And now, the thing about 1.0 is, like post 1.0 Kharkov, is that they completely extended this area. They made it a much they made this area much bigger. They shrank the size of the city. And now the problem there becomes that if you do go city on the current version of this map, that you often just get dunked on by people sniping from like the area that would be out of this way, like all the hills and everything. It becomes very, very slow and stagnant in terms of like how can you actually play from there. You kind of just have to rely purely on like light tanks and mediums taking the whole other side, which then means if you're a heavy tank, it gets really frustrating. Or even if you're just anyone trying to play the rest of the map. And on top of that, you've got some really kind of dumb TD positions and sniper positions where on the current version, people will often try and like brawl around, well, go hold down around here and here in their heavy tanks. Now, with the current version, roughly around here, there's an area that can shoot kind of like across like that way. And this one would be able to shoot across that way. Problem with that is that is one of the only areas in the city that actually provides any way in and out of places. Now, why do I say that? Well, because this road here got completely nerfed because all the cover that would have been around here is gone pretty much, and in the current version. So, and there's no way in and out of this, well, in between this road and here. So, this road here, current with the more recent version of this map, it's just a road this way. Obviously, you've still got this crossroad here, and you've got this here. But if you get to here, roughly, with the old version of Kharkov, you can actually come into here, and start working your way around this way. There's no stupid hull down windows here and here. There's better cover, more interesting fights around this whole area. Like, you've still got cover around here a little bit. You've got a whole like area around here for like light tanks and everything to work around. You've got TD positions here, here. With old Kharkov, you still had a reasonable selection of options in what you could do. You still had TD positions back here. You still had, places back here. You had things you could do with basically everything. But you also had interesting ways in and out of all the different parts of the map. You don't have that anymore with the current version of Kharkov. And even this area with the current version has far less interesting things that go on because it's actually just straight up smaller and has less cover. So, yeah, I feel like with Kharkov, if they ever bring it back, if the war in Ukraine ends and they bring back this map, then literally just go back to this version and just make it HD, and it will be a much better map for it because you've got a lot more options in terms of making the map flow. And this is something that wargaming don't seem to understand, and is what makes it really stagnant. Is that the way that they're making maps right now? It really hampers player creativity, and really just kind of forces you into certain ways of playing the maps each and every time. Uh, and by that I mean certain ways with certain tanks. You don't have options as much. And it's a good example. This is a good example. In fact, I'm really glad that What Tactic have kept the old version of Kharkov map on their system as something that you can see, because it's so handy to show you guys just what we had before 1.0. Now, let's go on to Lakeville. I'm ignoring Comarin because that's been out of the game for so long that I don't really remember much of how that map played, so I can't really comment on that. Lakeville, again, it's another map with a lot of wasted space. Obviously, you've got massive hill here, massive hill here, you got a hill here, here, that could just be out of the map. They could expand the valley area this way by just ditching, like getting rid of this whole mountain and chucking it out of there, and like would add a couple of extra areas that people could play around here. This whole mountain, this is big enough in the game that you could literally add like a whole little, like almost a little tunnel network. But realistically, I feel like what they need to do is just like slim it down, like not make it quite as tall, add some little mountain roads with some rocks and some bushes on either side, and I think that would be pretty cool. That would give you ways to go in between the middle area, you could, and the valley area. You would have areas, you could actually, fight people, spot people, for people in other positions. It could be really interesting. You could even make it so that it's almost like the hill on Corellia, like with a bigger area up in the middle there, people could go up to and fight around. That if a team wins, city for example, they can then shoot towards that, you know, instead of just dumb middle road. Um, the lake as well. I feel like what they could do. There's a couple of ways that they could like actually turn that from just a lake that is just there and that just blocks off a lot of area on the map to something a little more interesting. It could be, you could have it as something that's maybe dried up, or you could have it as you could even add like floating pontoon bridges that go like from here to here, or one that goes from like here to here. You add a few pontoon bridges or something like that. Add ways that are interesting to get across from that middle road across to this way. Again, what this does is it makes the map flow a little better because you've got more routes around the map rather than just if you're coming from here and you're going city, you're basically, even though you've got a road here, this road's going to get you killed because you're just going to snipe from there, and the same for like this road because you're going to get sniped from there. It gives you other options because especially late game where you've got fewer tanks around, you've got ways that you can actually go around the map in interesting ways. And I feel like if they added, like, or even if they like just had it so then maybe the lake had dried up or something, or had been drained, then they could add something like that, or even add just a big island in the middle of it, like right here, that people could like go to like via little bridges and like actually navigate the map in a way, instead of just going. If they went city, then you're lit. Even though that you've got a road here and a road here, you're still going the same way. You're still going around like that, or like this. You're still going in the same direction. You're directed to the same point in the same way, which again that just becomes very stagnant and very one dimensional. On top of that, obviously, you've got a big hill out here. You could expand this a bit, push that hill out of the map, add more rocks or buildings out here. You've got options for this. Same with this rock here. Obviously not quite as much, but you do have the option to just yeet this out of the map and just add a couple extra things around here that people can fight around. Extra buildings would be really cool. And so yeah, Lakeville is a pretty straightforward one in terms of how they could make it better. And obviously, this is me not as like a professional map designer, but as someone who is clearly knows the game and knows the problems with it, especially the problems with the maps. And I feel like Wargaming's the map design team, not the art team, the guys who actually make it look nice, are the separate team, the guys who actually like come up with the layouts of them are the problem here. They're not particularly imaginative in the ways that they could be. Live Oaks. So my issues with Live Oaks lie in three areas more than anything else. This area, this area, and the city. Now, obviously, these are the three main corridors, you could say. My issue with the city is that spawn number 2 has an early game advantage because they can come to these little buildings here, spot people going to the city, get very early shots, while the typical tank destroyer positions like here and here will struggle to do a lot against them to counter them. Whereas, if someone rushed from spawn 1 to here, somehow managing to get there first by some miracle, this position would be the only one that would be really like countered. Not this. Spawn number 2 has a very, very safe route into the city. Now, that is a bit of a problem because that is a third of the map. That's one whole like flank that spawn number 2 has a big advantage on early game. Now, what I feel like they could do is realistically they could expand the town, maybe not like all of it, but they could expand this part this way a bit. They don't need to expand the entire thing. Maybe just add a few more buildings around here. And maybe on top of that add a couple around here. Just so then it's more difficult. So then if people go here, then it's going to be a lot more difficult for them to get those early game spots against people crossing here. Maybe on top of that, add a lot of more rubble around here. So then if, spawn number 1 is trying to contest the city, to try and contest this area, this corner here, then it's more difficult for people to like get those early shots across this street. And so definitely there's things they can do. I would also argue that they could add lots of piles of rubble around the city in general for people to maybe try and go haul down on, try and contest those. There's definitely things that they can do around there. My next area of complaint for the map is this big middle area around, this area, this little road here, which is obviously intended for light tanks. Try and, get across, or maybe like get to here and try and spot out to here and here and here. But the issue there is that it's literally a single track. Yeah, there's a couple of small buildings around it and some bushes. But if you go that way, there's really only the same road that you have to escape from then. You either can go straight this way if you're coming from spawn 1, or straight this way from spawn 2 if you're actually pushing in. But if you're trying to retreat, well, you're going the exact same road, so it's very predictable. So what I feel like they could do is literally just make all of this just really shallow water at the very most, or just completely drain it. Just make it all like, easily traversable. Maybe remove a couple of the more, excessive bush areas, and make it a little more in terms of like dips in the terrain, for light tanks to try and duck into. Maybe a couple of rocks, or even a couple of extra small like little huts and houses, fisherman huts or something, for people to try and go around. That would be pretty neat. So then they could actually use this area. Obviously, I feel like this area is again, there's way too much in terms of deep water there. I feel like what they could do is, if they want to keep some deep water there, then add more like incredibly shallow areas going between the middle and each of these little areas here. Maybe add some cover. Maybe just like make it similar to this. In fact, make it like this in terms of depth, and in terms of like how the terrain affects tanks, but make it go this way and this way with some of the little huts and dips and stuff. They could be a lot more creative there. Then we have this whole side. Man, this whole side gets very, very stagnant very quickly. It becomes a battle of the hull down if no one manages to get to, well, in fact, still battle of the hull downs here and here if you have teammates getting to those places. And you shouldn't really feel like that. So what I feel like they really need to do is like just extend these islands, right? Extend them. Have the most of the deep water just outside of the map, where it's just for looks, and have some little rocks around here. Make it so that it's a bit more interesting for heavies. It's not just all hull down, and I think that would be a lot better. On top of that, do something about this side, because you don't have the same kind of strength of TD position that you have uh, here when you're on this spawn. This is your TD position, and all this does is this lets you shoot people here, like around this area. You are peeking, maybe here, but as soon as they start getting to here, you have to run if you are in this TD position here. These bushes. Now, why is that an issue? Well, you have a much longer distance from that spot here before people are likely to see you. So these are the bushes here that people will snipe from. If anyone is able to spot from there, even if it's someone spotting for themselves, then that will just be able to snipe straight down here. And yeah, it's a long distance that you have to cover of just basically completely open ground. Now, what I would argue is that this little patch of water here just doesn't need to exist. They could add bushes, they could add rocks, they could add more dips, they could add so much around here to make that a little more interesting in terms of being able to get from here across to here if you're going there from spawn 1. And again, because it gets really stagnant, and then your only option really is then to try and rush across here or come back around this way, but then that itself just means you're going to get sniped. Yeah. It's just really, really one of those little frustrations that I have with this map. I feel like as well that uh, some of the areas around here and here, as well as some of these, could be improved in terms of how they are able to defend their cap circles. But yeah, maybe they could add like more. Maybe they could raise this up a little bit, add some more hard cover, some bushes around this area. Maybe lower the height of this so it's a little easier to use the bushes, and there's things that they could do potentially. Now, obviously, I don't code. I don't know how to 3D model, and I would have to leave it up to the professionals on this. But these are just ideas on what you could potentially try and do to address some of these. Now, obviously, they are capable. I'm pretty sure they're capable of these, because I'm sure that with some of the changes they made to maps, that they're perfectly capable of doing it now. Obviously, or are going to make changes they are also planning on making. All right, Malinovka next. Malinovka currently suffers from one position itis, and that is the hill. Now, if your team takes hill early, manages to take like around here early, like if basically the hill, if you win around here, if you manage to put, let's say you're spawn 1, like you get up to the hill, you manage to make the enemy players who are trying to contest this area fall back. Anyone who is then caught here from them is dead. You will be able to farm them easy stuff, right? But then it gives this area, you win this gives either spawn a great advantage in terms of trying to take the rest of the map. Basically, it means you can get off right here. So you come from here, you can like dip down into here and then come around like this, off here, and then you can then get to around here. If you are in a medium or a light tank, this means you can try and use these bushes to spot around here. Now, the issue then becomes something different. Now, it's the same on the other side as well to an extent. It's actually a weaker area. These are weaker bushes compared to these. It's easier to defend if you're spawned to, because they're actually a little less dense for where you're actually able to get shots up the hill. And on top of that, people over here don't have as good a position for shooting others over this way. Whereas, Spawn 2 has people over here, here. They could even potentially still be at some of these rocks. And if you're here around this, if you've gotten to here, you have to overpeak quite a bit to have any chance of spotting anyone, like even around here. And so I feel like what Wargaming really should do is look at how many bushes they've actually got around here. This is the problem area, not so much here or here. This area, look at what bushes they've got. They really need that many because you have to have a way of countering those effectively. And right now, you just have to hope that you've got a light tank or a medium who can just rush in and spot them, or a heavy tank who can just tank so many hits that, or gets lucky with RNG that they hit somewhere that's not going to pen. Those are the only occasions where you're going to spot people over here. Spawn 2 is the comeback spawn. I've myself have like gotten so much progress towards different gun marks from a losing position just by farming people from here in terms of spotting, in terms of damage, in terms of tracking, all of the above. And so many matches where I've seen teams be able to just make a huge comeback just by sniping from here. Like having maybe someone just sit in this bush, or even just double bushing, you know? Like, it's insane how strong that is. You can't really do the same here. The way these bushes are arranged is a lot more balanced. The position of this rock is like quite safe because generally by the time you get to here, it's quite possible you might have a teammate here who can then just counter anyone around here, who can spot out this way. You know, it's just frustrating. And I really feel like those are the two parts that I want to see changed the most. Now, there are a couple other things about this map that I don't like as well. One, why is there so much deep water here? Why is this deep water? Why is this deep water? And why is this here? You could expand this little corner quite a lot. You could make this quite an interesting little area for people to either like fight around using rocks or dips in the ground and as cover. I feel like this just needs to not be a pond. It needs to actually just be grounds. Like, what is the point of this? They could, like, if they want to keep it as water, they could make it just really ridiculously shallow so you can actually still, navigate around it. It serves no purpose. And this area, in fact, this whole bit in general, I feel like they could make that. They could like add like more, either like they could just like make that like just like really shallow marshland, make some bushes there. It could be interesting for light tanks, especially late game. And again, this serves no purpose. Just raise it up a little bit, maybe make it a hold down spot, something like that. It serves absolutely no purpose. It's literally there. The only time I see this being used is people here and here to defend, or Artie sitting here, who then goes to drown themselves. That's it. Also, the number of times on this side that I see people like fall off the road and drown is just crazy. So I feel like expanding that would actually be interesting and actually add something to the map that's just not just Lamau, a player drowned. Which is like most of the time when I see people trying to push this side, even like early or late game, the number of times I see people just dunking themselves into the water and drowning their tank is insane. It's the majority of times. I don't often see people actually getting across here safely, and unless like it's such a one-sided match that the enemy team have like lost everyone that can actually stop them, and they can just cross for free across this way or this way. Next we have everyone's favorite map that they love to hate, Mines. Now, Mines suffers from two major problems. One, it's too small for higher tier matches, those being, in my opinion, even some of the more mid tiers. I would say this map is too small for anything above tier 5, currently. Personally, I would even say maybe even anything above tier 4. And it's partially because of how the map's laid out. You know, like it's so small because all the area, or it feels smaller than it actually is, because, well, you don't have big areas to play around. Because you've got, look at this, you've got a huge mountain range taking up like a lot of space around here. You could make this such a better map by just opening this whole area up, putting more houses, cover, bushes, like a little, like, different, like, hills that you can go up and down on, that you can actually navigate around. You know, even if they were just to, like, keep it like a little bit of a hill like this size and open up past that like as a little area, and then do the same like here. You know, maybe keep like this sort of size as like a hill area, as an impassable area, and then have the rest of it opened up. You know, that would be better. It would add an area where, you know, you're not just getting dunked on from the hill, which is the next problem. The hill has only one route up, which is a problem in itself. For such a dominant position on the map, it needs more than just one entrance. You need people to be able to properly fight for it. Because right now it's just a case of who's lucky enough to get up there first. Who's got the faster tanks? That's it. That's it. That's all there is. Who's got the faster tanks? So then they can, you know, take the hill first and stop the heavies from peeking, because then by that time your friendly heavies will have gotten here and can shoot across to them. Like, let's say, and even then, Spawn 2 has the safer route. Still, to this day. Spawn 1 has to go like this usually. Or like this. Spawn 2, yeah, it's a lot shorter. Now, the hill could be made a lot more interesting by giving it an extra 2 routes up at the very least. You could argue for 3 at most, but 2 would be perfect, right? Because what you could do is you could have another road right here. You could even have a little ramp right here. You could have a little ramp right here. So then, and you could maybe even add an extra rock here, and then like an extra rock here. You know, you could do a couple extra things. Maybe add like windows that you can see through here. You can shoot to either side here. Yeah, there's things you can do there to make actually contesting the hill an interesting fight, instead of just going, oh lol, who got there first? Because that's how it is. And that would pretty much like solve the issue of the hill being an issue, because then, you know, if people are trying to contest around here, then, you know, they can try and pull back, come up, and then contest the hill. Same for going this way. If they get stuck here, then, you know, they can try and come back up this way. And also on top of that, this area is pretty stale. So what can they do to improve this area? Well, for one, they could add actual cover around these areas. I would also argue having these as this kind of marshland that slows you down is a little it is pretty bad. I think they've improved this like over the last year. I think like they did actually make changes to this, but they're so minor that you wouldn't notice. I would also argue having a little more like cover around like this area, and this area would, I mean, in general, like around here, would make this a little more dynamic. Maybe even make it so then, yeah, like you don't really need like this to be a hill. You could make it like hull down. You could just remove that whole hill area and just make it like loads of little like undulating spaces. Like, also on top of that, why does Spawn 1 get like this area with bushes here to counter this? And they can be held down? When Spawn 2 just literally does not get that at all. That's another weird one. And on top of that, Spawn 1, you can improve the TD areas by removing this hill. And because it's just so awkward to move around the typical TD bushes here. And Spawn 2 as well is really awkward to play around here, so I feel like what they could do is even extend this little hill out to maybe around here, you know? Or even like further forward a little bit. And maybe add like an extra couple of bushes or rocks, or do something like that. Maybe even like for around here they could like raise this little road area here, add some more rocks and bushes, like make that a bit more interesting. Certainly they could do it for both sides. And so yeah, those are definitely things that I think could make mines a lot more interesting. Obviously, we've got Minsk now. Obviously, this is again not in the game right now due to the war in Ukraine, because of the actions of the Belarusian government, I believe. And but this map, I feel like they did open these up a bit. So this is an older version of the map that we're seeing. They did open these up, which made this side a little more interesting, which is good. But they also made them a huge gamble because you can get farmed if you're trying to cross to them. I feel like in general, they could do a lot more with this side overall, rather than the areas around here and here that they opened up. I feel like they could open up the entire area instead. Um, I know it wouldn't be quite as faithful to how the real city looks, but like I don't feel like you. I feel like you can make better maps without being faithful to how a city looks. To be brutally honest, like you can make it bombed out, so then like some of these buildings are opened up through like as if they've been bombed. uh you can even like make it so then like maybe like you got bridges across, like pontoon bridges, like wartime floating pontoon bridges, like across different parts of the river. They did make the river shallower in the changes, which is good. It needed that. And so then you can actually cross in more places, which was a good change. I feel like they could make this a little more interesting with some of the positions, and like maybe make it a little more in terms like ridgeline cover around here instead of making it so steep, so then more tanks can actually make use of it. Uh, they did add more cover around here. I think they could have probably. I think they added more cover here from what I remember as well. They made that a bit more functional. They did nerf this TD spot and this one, which was good. I think they opened up this from what I remember, which was good. I feel like they could maybe have added a little more cover around here and around here. I think they did that, but I don't remember too much. So I'm gonna actually leave this one as it is, at that. Um, Mountain Pass next. Mountain Pass. Now this map is going to be getting some changes. Most of them are okay, but there is one change that is very, very much not okay, in one specific way, and just okay, just in another. So, current Mountain Pass has early game advantages for spawn number one, late game advantages if spawn two are losing. But we'll start with how it is right now. So, spawn one has very strong positions for spotting from here and here across to this area. And why that's bad is that spawn 2 don't really have much cover here for when they're trying to cross to this south area right here, which is a very popular area for fighting around. Actually, very, very strong if you can win that. Almost essential that you have to win that from either spawn if you want to have a good chance of winning the match. So that's immediately an issue. Now, I believe that's one of the changes that's going to be improved with the next version of this map. I believe they're going to be making this area a lot lower down, so tanks are going to be harder to hit. I believe that they're also adding some cover around here as well. I think they're making just hard cover in general for this patch a lot better. Well, this patch of ground rather, not this patch as in update. Um, Then obviously you've got the bridge, which is just, I mean, it's useful to like be able to get across it, but it's one of those where it can get very stagnant if you're just holding against each other. Now, what's nice with the update that they're going to be doing to this is that they're going to add paths that you can climb up very easily, little ramps. You can climb up to either side if you have managed to take this area, which you usually do by winning, the south here. That will let you then kind of come down here, go up here, or you can just fight the people up here. I believe that they're actually improving the cover around these areas as well. Now, the change that they are making is actually to this hill. One of the big changes is going to be to this hill here at spawn 2. Now, they are going to make it incredibly difficult to shoot down on people around here from that hill, which is good. That's a good change. However, and they're actually flattening it out, so then they're reducing like the bush cover up here as well, so it's easier to hit people who are up here if you're coming from this side. Now, the problem then comes that they're flattening out roughly this corner of this hill just enough so that that hill here, the one that people like to sit on, can snipe almost all the way down here. From what I remember, almost all the way. I'm pretty sure it'll be able to go out to here, as far as I remember, from what I saw of the super test changes. So that could be an issue. That could lead to a lot of frustration in matches. I think that hill will still be very, very strong to defend from. I don't think it's gonna be a particularly big nerf to that position. And obviously these bushes, I think they're still gonna remain. I don't think they're changing those. They are a problem. They are very strong. So I believe I don't quite remember. If you guys say in the comments, if you guys remind me. Uh Let me know if they were changing these. I do not remember. If they are not changing these bushes, then that is going to be a problem because these are very, very strong. Right. All of that out of the way. This map is probably one of the most egregious for wasted space in the entire game. Obviously, we've got smaller areas like down here. Why they've made that a big cliff area you can just fall off and drown your tank or crash, I don't know. It doesn't need to be. You can just make this like a big flat area, or a little raised area that you can shoot down from. You could do things that are a lot more interesting that way. And then obviously, you've got big mountain areas that take up like such big chunks of the area within the map border that it's just like, why can't you just open this up? Like, you could even make a version for high tier where this is opened up. Like they already have like specific map versions for game modes. They could even like have a version of this that is like coded to where they could add like a line of code or something that looks to see if you know match is X tier, well, has like X tier as the highest tier, and then like based on that, because if you're in like tier 3 or 4, obviously like it might be a bit too big. It might be like too many places to go if you open that up for those tiers. But basically, I would argue as soon as you get to like tier 5 or 6, you could justify opening this up completely, like remove this whole mountain and just have this as just like a big open space. Kick this out of the map border. Have this as an area where there's a lot of either cover or hills that you can go up and down. Just they've wasted like a whole like corner of a map. That's a big area that is just wasted, absolutely wasted. And like they could make it so then there's like like hit like routes up onto this, like 3 4 different like roads from either side that can go up onto this area that's like a raised area that maybe doesn't have the option to shoot directly down on people, but you have an area that you can go up to that maybe has like a little monastery area or something you can fight around. That would be a lot more interesting than just, oh, it's big hill that takes up big chunk of map. Like, you could still have the mountain out of there. You could still have, like, as part of the mountain, you could have, like, the peak further out of the map that, like, as, like, part of the skybox. And you could have, like, a monastery area up there you could climb, you could drive up roads to, that you could fight around, That would be really cool, but, you know, Wargaming just went, oh, it's big hill, and just kind of left it at that. Obviously, this and this are specifically meant to like force you up this way or this way, or this way or this way. Because they wanted to have like people go certain routes. Now, I do feel like they should offer ways to go like from, let's say, this road to here instead of having to go all the way back round. I feel like having the odd little road that goes up and over would be quite interesting that way, or that way, or that way, or even like from like up and over to here, or to here. Like that would be pretty interesting there. These two I don't have as big a problem with at the moment, but I guess they could have like a little slope that goes down into the little basin area here. I feel like this area could do with a little more cover, much the same as this area. This again, I feel like they could have little like mountain pass roads that go little like around up and around that you can shoot up and down from, up at or down from. Again, this feels like it's a bit wasted. You can have like roads going around this way that people can fight up and down. This corner again, I feel like this is just like wasted because again, you can have like a much more interesting fight if you open up like a bit more of this. Not even like the entirety of it. You don't even. This bit's one of those where you can open up maybe about down to like here, and then you can have like an extra couple of roads, more rocks, whatever you felt like adding down there. But yeah, it's just a lot of wasted space on a map that could be a lot more interesting had they opened things up a bit more. All right, Muravanka. Muravanka has improved a fair bit in terms of the heavy tank area with the most recent changes to it. So this side I'm actually fairly happy with for the most part. I don't really have any complaints about this side of the map anymore. Uh, what I do have complaints about is this side of the map, particularly since the positions on this corner are just and over here are just so strong at just stopping people from playing the game. And like you've got bushes you can just knock down just right down here, and you can farm people for all their worth who are like all the way out to over here. Pretty crazy. And you're able to shoot up at here. It's wild. It really is. And well, not all the way up at here, but like roughly here. And yeah, it's pretty wild. This side of the map doesn't quite have the same thing. Like you've got like a bush here, but like this area is just so low and so like it's so steep to go up these hills that you don't have the same shots out this way. You really only have here, like this little ridgeline area around here, to shoot off against people who are like trying to push through here. And but if they're down here, you're kind of screwed. And so that's something that they really need to look at balancing out. Now, there's a couple of ways they can do this. And this whole area of water, again, it's wasted space that should just be outside of the map. And they could add like another whole like set of ridge lines that you can go around, or rocks or buildings or whatever kind of cover you want to try and like approach here. Now they can add like counter positions to it like here as well. And they could do the exact same here as well. And that's really the only parts of this map I have a problem with. I don't mind this map for the most part. It's really just this and this. I don't have a problem otherwise. And which is weird for me to say because like otherwise I don't mind. I think it's not a bad map with the exception of like this oh, with the exception of this side. Like just open things up with where the water is and add more like routes around here and maybe like do something about this position and clap. That's it. That's all I would change. Right, what else have we got? Nebelberg is Grand Battles, and I don't play Grand Battles. I do not care for them, so out. I'm gonna go over Overlord next. Ugh, that's a lot of overs. This map has really just one big issue in my mind, and that is the beach down here. It serves as bait for lower tier players or people who just don't know any better, right? Because the problem with that is it doesn't offer you any advantage on the map whatsoever. None. None whatsoever. So if one team has people going beach and one team who takes this area, and they win those areas, because if one team has like, let's say 5 people from one team go beach, maybe 3 go from the other, that leaves an extra couple of tanks who can cause absolute pain for the team that had the more on beach. Because because with the extra numbers, they could then very easily take like this little area here, farm people who are like out this way, this way. Like let's say I'm spawn 2, let's say I've 1 here. I've then got very strong positions right here and here to really just absolutely decimate anyone around here and around here. And it's the same going the other way. If I'm spawn 1 and I'm able to win here, I can farm people who are on this corner, on this corner. I can shoot out to here. I can shoot out to here. I can also come back around to this rock and shoot out to here. It's, yeah. Even like all the way around to here, I can then shoot out this way. You know? Like, and here, I can also farm people who are over here, maybe in their tank destroyers. It's so strong. And I feel like what they really should do is just get rid of these roads here and here and here and here, and just have it as like the map border going along the cliff edge on this side. You can still make it so then the part of the beach is like the skybox. Make it so then you can still see it, right? But then like just expand that so you can actually do more there. Add maybe a couple more rocks, bunkers, whatever. Bushes for TDs, whatever you feel like adding along this way. But then expand that way out inland, and they could expand this field, these fields out this way, make it like ridge lines, maybe make a couple of farmhouses, and farms out that way, rocks and whatever other kind of bush cover, tree cover, whatever you felt like adding that way would look and play well, because then that way you've got a heavy tank brawling area here. It would satisfy Wargaming's whole criteria that they want to stick by, but I feel like it would add better opportunities for people, because at the moment, this is just bait for bad players right now. It offers nothing to the team. So, yeah, literally just get rid of all the roads onto the beach, make the map border literally go like make the whole cliff side area like all the way along here, and make it so then people cannot fall off. I know that kind of ruins the fun of some of the memes, but on a practical core gameplay sense, you need to be like you as a developer need to be looking at how are people gonna like navigate around the rest of the map over this way, instead of this is bait. I'm sorry, Wargaming, but this is just not good. You can do better. What else have we got? What's Pacific Island? I don't think I ever played that. That was a really old one. All right, Paris. Paris really annoys me because it can be really good for getting gun marks on heavies, but it's also a very like single position map. Single position itis, that's here. Single area of the map that dictates the whole outcome of the battle, pretty much. And And the reason for that is that if you win down here, you're then able to go up this way, out this way, around this corner, or around this corner, depending on what spawn you get. You know, like, you have more options going from here. You have stronger options. And whereas if you are like, if you get across this way, if you manage to win here, then you know you've got up here, but that's very open against people who are down here. You've got maybe here, but then if someone's over here and you're going to try and get into the cap circle, well, guess what? You're going to get farmed by anyone who's over here, or even someone here, or here, or here, or here. Like if you're trying to do the same thing from this side, it doesn't work, right? So it's very easy to defend your cap circle if you have control of this part of the map. It's also a lot easier to attack the cap circle. So what do they need to do? Well, for one, I would argue that they need to improve cover and bush cover around this area. Now, how could they do that? Well, these little ridges, they can extend those. They could make them, you know, a little bigger, a little more flat on the top, so you can actually use the bushes to double bush. And you could also include more bushes around this area. You could also push the whole riverside area out of the map, push the river out of the map completely. So then you've got more space here that you can use to, you know, create cover for people. And then, you know, you could have like an actual road sort of area around there with bush cover, maybe building materials, you know, whatever kind of hardcover you feel suits the how the map currently looks. And on top of that, you know, you can improve these areas here and here in terms of what they can actually do. You can have more bush cover around this to let TDs counter like a push this like across here or across here. You know, you could do the same for here, where this could counter people who have managed to push to here very easily. You know, or you know, you could even add more bushes around here in general that would then allow this position to counter here. You know, you have options there, and you can do the exact same on the other side. It's almost an exact mirror. And then on top of that, you can maybe add little trenches around that middle area, so then little light tanks can like dip in and out of them to try and get spotting off if they're trying to play active. You know, that could be really cool. Then on top of that, what you could do on the bottom area of the map, instead of having this be a very one-dimensional fight around this area, you could then bomb out some of these big, massive buildings here to create ways in and around them that would actually be interesting. You don't have to like have raised positions for those so much, but maybe you can add like piles of dirt or rubble or small walls or something like that to shoot over, or windows. You know, you could do so much with these, but they are just wasted. And again, you've got some other wasted spots here and here that you could actually, you know, use to create interesting positions with, but instead they're just kind of just, well, they're there and they're not really doing anything. They're just kind of pointless for the map, really. And again, it just hampers how a map flows if you just have one position that dictates the outcome more than in more matches than anything else. Now, Pearl River, this is the old version of the map that What Tactic have. So I'm gonna do my best to go over this, but again, we have a lot of wasted space. Obviously, like where the heavy tanks usually fight around here at the moment. You've got this big hill here with only 2 roads here and here. So maybe having roads up onto here to actually have people be able to fight around these buildings here would be pretty cool. And obviously right now you've got one route into this middle area. Like so you go up into here and then you can get into here. And I do kind of feel like what they could do is maybe offer up like an alternative road. So then you keep the middle one, obviously, but then if you're coming up this way, have a separate one that goes off like that or like that. then you've actually got maybe like almost a little arena sort of area, like right here. It's very difficult to actually use this old version of the map to actually describe what it is right now. So I'm gonna leave this one at that because it's, and also I'm slightly colorblind to greens and reds, so this is very difficult on this one for me personally. Prokhorovka. All right. Proc has a 1-2 line problem. This is the problem area more than anything else. The hill is actually not too bad in the current situation, the current version of the map, because if teams are contesting it, then you've got people up around here who want to try and spot out here. If people are a little more aggressive here and they take this position, they can be really effective. They can spot out. They can play hull down. It can be really strong. But likewise, if the other side managed to do the same, and they can get to roughly around here, from what I remember, and they can absolutely make use of it from both sides. So I don't have a huge problem with the hill as it stands. And my main issue with this map is around the middle and the 1-2 line. Now, these are the bushes on E1 currently. I feel like those are still very strong. Obviously, they're very popular, so people do know that light tanks go there. However, right now, there are bushes like right around here that light tanks can go into, and around roughly here that can, if they get there first, they can counter spot people going E1. And same for this one, they can like basically just spot like that. They can also spot out like this way, or this way, or out to here, here. Like this area of the map is very strong for light tanks from either side, and I feel like that's the most annoying part because it's so difficult to counter them if you're in anything that doesn't have commander vision system, which is the piece of equipment that they brought in with equipment 2.0 that would take away some of the camo value of bushes. Now, if your team doesn't have anyone with those or doesn't have a good crew in their light tanks, then you're probably gonna lose this whole side. And because what will happen is the light tanks can slowly progress down this way, casually spotting out as they go, and then if they get to around about here, they can start just actively spotting around there, go back into the dip. They can like snake their way around this a lot more. So what can they do here? Well, with the active events, they're going to bring in more hard cover, like they're going to have a plane crash sort of thing here, which strips away some of the bushes, adds more hard cover. Now, what I feel like they should do is, realistically, not have this line of bushes here in the first place, like right here, right next to this kind of bowl area, and actually have more around here, not all the way up to the top of this kind of ridge here, but kind of more lower down, and then kind of like remove some of the kind of extraneous ones from like random spots that actually don't cover tanks at all. Maybe have a couple extra around here or this side, because this area doesn't really serve any purpose other than to shoot out this way or this way. It doesn't really give you good opportunities for sniping, and like this does the exact same from the other side, shooting this way, this way, this way, but a lot more effective, and it does this way as well. So yeah, they could maybe improve this area in general for people with TDs. They could maybe add some extra rocks around here, here, and here, just so that if people are looking to try and push into either side, then they have some sort of cover that they can try and gamble for. Because it is a gamble, making that kind of push. And yeah, like there's definitely things they can do. But realistically, my only real problem is around here. So yeah. Next, Pilsen. So this is a map that was better before 1.0 as well, and for a few reasons. The area that you could fight around the factory was a lot better. They had like interesting ways that you could actually like get in and around this little small like double factory area. These were a lot closer, as well, so it was more of a brawl than a hull down like slugfest. It was a lot more active, and I can't quite remember, but I'm sure they had like an extra door in from this side as well. But we're gonna base things on how it is now. Like obviously, I would love for it to go back to the old design, like from before 1.0, and just make it HD. But what they could do is a few things. Uh, I would like to see an extra little bit of cover around here and around here because this position and this position for TDs is just incredibly obnoxious. It really is. I do feel like they could add some more cover in here. So then, like maybe like broken tanks or something that you could use as hull down or whatever, like, or even just like add like more walls that you can actually navigate around. There's definitely things they can do. Like have like different segments. Like you could have like a whole bit like this in like you could have 4 areas like this almost in this whole factory area. I think that would be a lot more interesting than just Lamau, 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 big open area. Um, on top of that, I do kind of feel like maybe an extra patch of dirt or something right in the middle of here could be something that people could try and play for. That would actually add a bit more depth to the heavy tanks fighting over here. Um, on top of that, I feel like this area is just a waste. Like, why do we have just deep water on this side for Artie to drown in? Wasted space once again. You could add like a lot more over here. So then spawn number one, or could have like positions they could actually like go around this way, take another route this way, or positions where if you're number two and you get to this side, you've got another route out this way. Spawn two side over here. This road is just pointless. So unless you're going to add something for either over here or where this hill is, it just serves no purpose. So realistically, they need to do something about adding another little road like around here, in my opinion. They could add a little extra little bit of cover around here because of this hill, or there's not that much they can really do for these because if you really want these to still be useful, you can't add too much that counters them. Um, I feel like this is not too bad for light tanks for active scouting, but I feel like what they could try and do is maybe add the odd couple of bushes like around here that people could play for in their light tanks. Maybe add a little more cover here for people trying to go up this way in a heavy tank or something, or a medium tank. Maybe some of the rail cars that they've got around here, they could add a couple extra around here. And so there's definitely, I feel like there's things they can do. Obviously, all these dotted lines are like rail tracks, so they can add like rail cars up and down those in different places. There's definitely things they can do to make the whole map a little more interesting. But my biggest complaint is certainly, well, complaints are certainly here and here just being kind of boring. As someone who loves their heavy tanks and their armored mediums, those are just kind of boring as they are right now. And Port has not been in the game for a long time. I don't really remember how matches would go, so I can't comment on that. That's the old version of Province, but the current version is not suitable for any tier above tier 4, purely because of how view range is above that tier. And the fact that you can spot and snipe across from either side very, very easily is just a bit much. I feel like at tier 5 and up, it becomes where view range just annihilates everything. It's the same problem, really, as previously. And I kind of feel like uh, some of the positions that you can go up to with the little hills and bushes on either side, like if you cross over from one of your spawn locations to the other side, like for example, like let's say I spawned. If we're looking at the current version of the map, it's like around here. Then you'd cross like under the like past the aqueduct up to like a hill around here. You'd have bushes. You can snipe at everyone from here, and then like you'd go up to like the Abbey area, and you'd have bushes that snipe down this way. Like, I feel like that's a bit obnoxious in how those actually work out, and how strong they can be. So I feel like those can maybe do with a couple of changes. But realistically, I feel like the biggest change for Province would just be to reduce the tiers that it sees to tier 4. What have we got next? Redshire. Redshire, I don't mind on the whole, but I do kind of feel like spawn number 1 has the worst heavy positions now over here. And because spawn 2, if they manage to get all the way to here, they can have someone just go hull down even without gun depression, and it's so obnoxious against people here. And you don't really have that going the other way. So I know, and also on top of that, they've got a really strong TD position here still, and they've got TD positions here that can be kind of strong. So it feels like we've gone from like spawn number 1 here having the advantage because they could spot spawn 2's heavies getting there early, and then side shots from here. That's not the case anymore. I do kind of feel like these hills could be expanded a little bit, a bit more flat, allow people to actually, use bushes on them a little more. And I also kind of feel like this position around here gets such easy shots into the castle from there compared to this side. It just feels a little awkward to me. This area is just really strong for TDs. This area is really strong, but again, those only really work if you've already like got people like getting to here. Obviously, this is really strong if people are here. It's a difficult one. It does also kind of feel like this hill here and this hill here could just be removed, and they could maybe like add more like actual cover you can use. Um, it's a difficult one for me to really kind of place because it's actually still one of the better ones in the game. There's not a whole lot I would change. Um, yeah, realistically, just do something about this. We don't need like a big hill here that just does nothing other than create like a random spot here for people to hide in for no reason. Uh, Remove this one again, same reason. And here they need to like actually expand this area. I feel like because like really you're just like side scraping here and here most of the time, and that just gets really stale really fast. So expand this area up and down a bit. So then like make the hill this way a bit bigger and a bit bigger this way, and actually add more like cover, rocks, bits of Zeppelin. You know, it would be at least a lot more interesting to see than what we have right now over here. And that's about it. Ruinberg. What would I like to see on this map? Well, they're kind of doing it with the map events that they're going to be doing. Obviously, we've got the little balcony here already, which is fine. I don't mind it. It's not a bad addition. And I do like the idea that they're gonna like bomb out these, so you've got routes through them. They needed that. Obviously, this has been opened up already. That's fine. It doesn't really do much, but it's there. I feel like they could bomb this out, add some more positions with that, which they kind of did here already, but they've still got like the whole rest of it, which serves no real purpose. And then I kind of feel like they could maybe do with adding a little more hardcover around here, because obviously spawn number 2 gets all of this. So they can maybe do with adding stuff around here, be it tank wrecks, be it monuments, be it like maybe an extra building or something here, maybe building work even, and on like I don't know, like a bandstand or something. They can maybe even like improve some of the bushes like around here and around like maybe add some like around here or something, or around here, to like make things more interesting for when people actually manage to like take a side. So if like this side is won by spawn 2, then they have to contest with people like around hardcover around here, but they can also use that themselves. And maybe a little bit of hardcover here so they can try and do something about people here. Like, and because you already have like going the other way. If like yeah, spawn two can use this to shoot up at spawn one if spawn one manages to win the little village. But if spawn one takes that village, then they've got a fairly easy way of getting around anyone hiding back here. Obviously, this part they actually addressed already. That's not as strong as it was, which is good. I just kind of feel like if they're going to have that kind of position there, then do the same here in the first place. But yeah, realistically, the play is just the way to improve it is just to make ways in and out of all these bombed out buildings, which they are kind of doing for the map event they're going to do on here. But realistically, I feel like it should be like a way of going in and out from the very start instead of relying on a map event. And Sacred Valley is one that I actually enjoyed. Sacred Valley, when this was in the game, I actually didn't mind this map at all. This was actually not bad. It did have some issues, like obviously, like being able to climb up here was really cheesy. So I didn't mind that they blocked that out. Obviously, it gave people like a tool to use for defensive purposes, but the fact that some of them could shoot out all the way here was a little obnoxious, which was to be honest more the issue than the being able to defend from up there. It did have some wasted space because of this massive mountain here, and obviously it extended basically all the way around the entire map. But with Sacred Valley, each side of the map, this side and this side, had multiple routes, and of course you had actual cover and everything around the middle. So it was an actually interesting map. So if you're going this way, for example, you could either try and go around here, go down into the little dip area around here, or fight around here. You can try and go around this way, up into here, or around here. Or like the same going the other way, you could try and go around into here, go around this way, come around like around that way, around here. You had you had some pretty interesting options on that side. And even over here, like you could try and fight around the monastery, either side of it. You could like come up this little road here, shoot into the monastery, shoot over here, and you could try and cross over. You could even like try and take the low road under the bridge, try and get around here or get around here. You actually had things you could do there. And then, if you went into the middle, you could then, try and use some of these buildings to try and spot out people who are camping the base, or, you could go back around there. You could use that to get, in amongst the heavies. This was actually solid. Really solid compared to what we have now. And realistically, the only thing I would really do is push the massive mountains outside of the map border and add maybe a couple extra roads. Hell, you could even add like a tunnel network going through that one on that side, or even like make it so then you had actual roads up onto the different parts of the mountains. You could actually fight around them. But as it was actually not bad compared to what we have now. I actually didn't mind Secret Valley at all. I actually had quite a bit of fun on that one. All right, Sand River. Obviously, this area has been changed somewhat compared to the version that whattactic.com have. But that's and of course you've had some changes to the middle here, some cover around here. Now these changes on the whole have been actually not bad. I actually quite like that they make it more difficult to shoot straight down to the middle of the map from here or from here. They make that a bit more viable now, but the problem is you still get farmed from here or from like out here if you're not careful. But I guess that does add something where there's a bit of risk, which is fine. Obviously this area is a little more interesting here. You can actually defend yourself against people who manage to get here from spawn 1 if you happen to be coming from spawn 2. I think my biggest issues with this map is that this area is still very much dominant if you can win. If you are very fast to win this side, it's all over. So what I feel like they could maybe do there is maybe add some extra like ways to defend your base from either side, So obviously like with spawn 1, this area really does a decent job of defending against people in the middle and this side if they try and push. However, they don't really have much to defend against this side, so what I would maybe end up doing is I would probably reduce how much of this sand dune here actually covers tanks that are trying to push straight down there. You could even take this ridge here, remove this hill, but then also like make this a lot more like here, so then they can actually use bush cover to snipe out against there, which then would actually mean that taking middle would actually be an interesting thing for you to do, because then if you took that, you could try and get to here and then spot here, or get to here and spot here, depending on where your team needed you to spot. Obviously, the option there is if your team wins here, you can just drop down into there and then go there. But then again, that opens up options. I kind of feel like what they could also do is just like open this up a bit for use on this side. Like this dip is literally just for artillery. You don't need an arty specific location in this game. So like they could open that up as another like route up this way. Like just add rocks around here for if you're trying to push around this way. Or alternatively, add, positions here that you can use to defend against people over this way or over this way. Then over here, you've got this big dip here, which is literally just for artillery. Again, we don't need it. Like, add the positions here where people can defend against people on this line. And the same here. This position just serves no real purpose. So you could even, have actual cover going along around here. You can make this bit a lot more the same kind of height as here. Add a rock or two there. Maybe make it you can go that way. There's things they can do for sure. Is this map that bad? No. There's definitely tanks that will suffer on this map. Those with no gun depression do tend to struggle at times, but there's definitely things they can do. I do kind of feel like some positions here get really easy shots this way at times, but I'm not too worried about it because it's not that big a deal. Right. Serene Coast. Man, this map, this area is just so strong. If you can win this side of the map, you have so many options available to you. And you can dip into the middle here, you can come around this way, get your way into the little village over here, you can then come back and defend. If let's say you're spawn one, let's say you won this area, you can come back and dip into here, come back and defend using the ridge line here, which is really strong. You could even go into the little village and come back around this entire side here. You could even go into the village and attack here. And there's not a whole lot this side can really do to stop you if they're trying to push. There are positions along here that can snipe into the town, yes, but there's just a lot of cover around here, which does make it a little awkward to do. So, and then they can obviously go out to here, to here. You can come back around, go right to here, and it makes taking this side of the map really effective. Even if you're going from spawn 2, right? If you take that, you can then dip into here, do basically the exact same thing, with the exception of defending. If you're spawn 2, then if you win this side, you actually can still come back here, but then it gives you the option coming back here. It gives you the option of, going into the town as well, coming back around this way, going into the town, going around everyone that way. And yeah, it's just another map where you know because of having a lot of space that could be used for other things, just being taken up by either really deep water or big massive mountains, that it just becomes kind of very predictable in terms of what side is the more likely to win your team the match. And obviously, with this massive hill here, you could pull this back a bit and then open up spaces to defend back here, or even push the cap circle further back so you can have more interesting positions all around here. And you could also, open up a whole lot over here in terms of like what people could do. You could have a lot more space for light tanks and tank destroyers out this way. You could have more space here for heavy tanks to fight around a little town area, and you could have like all the water area like chuck it out the map, or you can like make this like super like shallow, like on Mountain Pass. You can like put rocks and stuff in here. Still have the bridge, obviously, but make it so you can go under it and then go around here, and then like have it so then like this is super shallow, but have like again like a bunch of rocks or whatever you can like put here. Like maybe extend this island bit further that way. Use some different dips. There's so much you can do, man, to make this a lot more interesting than what it is. And like even like have like this mountain have like another route round this way. So if you're stuck against people here, you can maybe if you had like a route round this way, you could then try and like shoot them in the side that way instead of going like here or here. It would open up like some actual creative options for players compared to what we have right now. And it's the same on this side as well. And then Sverogorsk, that's not been in the game a very long time. Don't really remember much about it. Siegfried Line. Siegfried Line is better now. They made some changes around here, which were pretty good. They added another route here for Spawn 1. They improved some of the cover around here and here, which was good. That was good. Those were good changes. However, for people in the city, it's still very awkward if you're from Spawn 1 to try and get past here. Mainly because of this being a thing. It's a very one-sided design. So what I reckon they should really do with this this building here is just remove this part. Realistically, add like some rubble here instead. Maybe make it so you can like go around here a little bit more easily, or you could add a lot more cover around here for people. Obviously, this is where they have the flag for encounter, so for how they've designed that, it's a little awkward. But to that end, they could add maybe like a bit of cover here or something. As well as that, it's very frustrating if you're Spawn 2 to try and push in. Like the TD positions for Spawn 1 are actually very, very strong. For if people are peeking here, 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 here. Somewhat for here as well. But what that then would mean is that if they want to try and keep things somewhat equal, is that they would then have to buff some of the positions here, make these a bit more viable, or even like make it so then this dip here isn't as shallow. Sorry, it's not as shallow, not as deep. So then you'd have more like area where you could actually use your gun depression in your tank destroyers up here. Use a lot more bushes to try and counter people who are maybe pushing here, 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 wherever they happen to be trying to go through. As for the field area, I do feel like what they could do is do they really need to add much though? I don't feel like they need to add much. If anything to the field, I think that's actually fine. Again, we've got some lakes here, some little areas where we don't really need water as deep as these. You could just make it shallow, and that would be fine. That's all they need to do really for those. These areas, they can just make that really shallow. There's no need to have these as areas where your tank can drown. And that's it. That's all I have to say on Siegfried Line. South Coast, I don't really remember much about. That's an old map. Stalingrad. Okay. I actually really liked Stalingrad when this map was in. Obviously this was water you could drown in, so I don't think that was needed. But all the rest of the map, for the most part, I actually really enjoyed. Because you had a lot of different ways in and out of all the different like buildings and streets. You had areas where you could still snipe on this side. You had options. You could like snipe on this side as a TD if someone was trying to take the quick route, regardless of what tank that other player was in. You could try and scout yourself. You could try and like get around these and then try and pop up here or wherever you needed to try and pop to try and counter someone peeking out of the buildings. obviously there's a big open area here, but what that would then mean is that if you were trying to traverse across here, that was a risk, but it would sometimes mean that you could, if you did get across successfully without being punished, you'd have a quick route around someone. So let's say there's people fighting here, but you were here. If no one was looking, you could get across to here and then get all the way around them. Like you could do a lot of flanking on this map. You actually had options, and it was actually fun. You had hold down positions, you had side scrape positions, you had ways to go around, you had so much on this map. And Wargaming just need to bring this back basically as it was. I know it's going to be difficult for them with the current situation with the Russia-Ukraine war, but if they could bring this back, maybe not even call it Stalingrad. You can bring this back and give it a whole different name. Just keep it with the exact same layout, literally down to every single last position. Just make it HD, and this would be a really solid map, Wargaming. You were onto something with this one, and you threw it away. I do not know why they removed this with 1.0. There is no need to. Steps. This position is less of a thing. I'm going to start with that. Obviously, they buffed here. This is an older version of the map, and yeah, that's most of what they've done. What I feel like they really need to do with this map is address a lot of the open space between either side and the cap circle, because these positions in each base are so obnoxious for defending. They really are. In fact, I would argue that this one might well be stronger than on the south these days, because you can have people trying to play hull down along the train track. If you've got someone up here just using the bushes properly, they can absolutely annihilate pretty much anyone that comes towards your base. And so what do I feel like this map is it needs, really? Well, it needs a way to like not have people funneled into like death zones. And so because that's what it does. That's what this map does. This is an area where light tanks love to go, but you can really only go as far as here if you're going from spawn 1. Unless you're really lucky and there's only one enemy light tank in the middle, and you and maybe a teammate rush him and then pull back. And because you certainly don't want to push all the way up to here early game, because you will just get slaughtered by people like hull down here, peeking from here, hull down here. It's a death zone early game. The same on this side, in fact. But the problem with them is that they get completely dunked on by like all the defensive positions here and here. This side of the map, I feel like what they really need to do is add a little more cover here, and then a little cover here, but then open up this corner. Just open up the corner and have the option for people to actually play around that. Like, there's no. This is one of those where you're kind of like, again, just butting heads up and down this, and just hoping that one team just sits on like here, while your team just kind of just goes with like a heavy tank to here and goes hull down and farms them. You're literally just hoping that the enemy team are just ultra passive on either side, and it allows you to try and like push it like around here or over to here, and in the same going the other way, like that's what you're hoping for if you're playing that side. And whereas if you opened up a little route right there, or if you opened up like a little route round this way, you don't have to have the entirety of either of those hills gone, but just enough to have a little route round them. That could make it a lot more interesting on that side. Obviously, this you can actually just make a whole route round here, and it would be actually pretty interesting. And as these two hills are right now, they're actually still in a position to counter people going that way. If you do it, if you actually like add just get rid of the hill completely, just get it out of the map border, and then maybe make some like a couple of roads and some like rocks and some cover that way. Maybe some dips here and there, for people to go into. But you know, you could still do that, get around this way, and then you could still try and spot people who are here. It would just be an alternative to like trying to come straight down this way, or you know, up and around here. You know, like trying to like just YOLO straight into this dip and probably die doing so. Um, on top of that, obviously you got the big open fields. They can maybe add like a couple extra rocks here and there. Not much, like maybe an extra one here, here, another one here, here. Like, you know, you've got things you can do with that. Maybe for the around the cap circles, add a little more cover trying to get towards them, but maybe not in the cap circle itself. You know, and that would be it. That's all I would change. Right, Studzianki. Oh man, Studzianki is another one of these win one part of map, win game maps, and that is if you can win the trench and keep a hold of it. Because if your team manages to get into there early, and then if the enemy team get to their buildings here, so let's say I'm spawned 2, let's say I go around, I get into here with something like a good medium tank or a heavy tank, I can go hold down over here, pew pew pew, take people out on these corners. I can spot out this way, I can even then come back round into here, spot from here, spot people who are over here, or use these bushes here, spot out this way. Or even if I'm feeling really, really ballsy, I can go all the way to here and then shoot people who are here, spot them there. And same going the other way, pretty much. Apart from obviously this position and this position, those don't tend to get spotted from down here. But that's fine. You need some place that can actually shoot at people who are like peeking, like trying to like spot from down here. People who are like coming up over the ridge, you need something to defend against them. I don't actually mind this or this too much. The problem is big open space doesn't do anything. So really, if you're going to improve this map, you need to have ways of getting into this trench. Like have a big trench here, maybe an extra couple of buildings along, scattered along here. You know, that would definitely make that a lot more interesting. As for the factory area, you could add it, you could expand it a little bit either way. Have a couple extra buildings for the heavies to brawl around. Maybe make it so then they can't just get farmed from either side so easily. You know, because currently, you know, they if they try and go anywhere forward, they just get farmed from up here and down here, like all the way down as well, and it just doesn't really serve as a good experience for a heavy tank player unless you're in something somewhat mobile and with turret armor, in which case you can actually use this if you're in one of those like VZ55, AMX M454, Chieftain, as some like high tier examples. And yeah, it's just kind of frustrating, really. And on top of that, and a lot of the positions here and here are just obnoxious to push into. So what you could maybe do is add a couple extra rocks around here, maybe an extra rock or two here or something, maybe an extra one here. You know, you've got things you can do that are really small but would actually improve a bit of the dynamics instead of just having static, you know, TD positions that just farm everything that gets close to you. Um, yeah. Also, why the hell is this here? This just doesn't serve any purpose. This hill, you could just chuck it out of the map, have it as you know set dressing outside of the border, and you know, I don't know, put like another. You could put like another one of these little hills over like towards the corner here or here, so then people can actually use another position. You know, like you can be a bit more creative than what they've got here. All right, here's another one that I actually didn't mind. From before 1.0. Now, Swamp had its share of problems, namely, you could farm people going to the castle very easily from either side. But that's a very easy solution for that. Improve the road going up here. You could have a road going up this way. Done. And you could also like add a couple extra buildings around here, right? And but honestly, I didn't mind Swamp because it had a lot of areas you could play around here. I quite like taking mediums here to begin with to shoot people across here, and then I could come back round, go up this way. But basically, what's happened is that Swamp technically is in the game. And I'll tell you why. It's Empire's Border. Just stay with me on this one. Now, Empire's Border is not in What Tactics database at the moment. So, yeah, but you have spawn in top corner, spawn in bottom corner. You have road going up here to a very similarly shaped area here, just with more cover around here. But I say, like a different version of the roads around here. You have big hill going over this way that blocks off most of the map, but you have a road going this way and out like that and like that. And then you have hill here that you can go up and fight on, and you have a lower area here. So literally all they've done is they've flipped this area around, blocked off most of here, and added like a much lower area here and a couple of hills here and here that you've got like these roads covered by, right? Empire's Border is just a worse version of, is literally Swamp, but if it was like done really poorly, right? So they could replace Empire's Border with Swamp, literally keep everything as Swamp was before 1.0, and it would be a better experience. Think about that for a moment. But yeah, Swamp, if they were to make it better, obviously they would have to get rid of the water here and here that Artie could drown in, same with the other side. But what you could then do is you could have like an extra road coming up, like get rid of this hill here, keep this road going low ground, so then you don't get just completely farmed by people who just happen to, come over here and shoot you across this way. And it's the same for like this side as well. If you went here, you could farm people going this road, so just have one coming up around this way instead. Like, so if you were around here, you could shoot out that road so easily. And same for like going that way. And so what they could have done is they could have just had like a much like deeper like ditch road like this going up the side here, and have this ditch here just go up the side, get rid of this mountain, come up here, and that would solve that corner problem pretty much. And you could obviously add cover, like add more like castle buildings here, add a couple extra buildings around the bottom here for people to brawl around, and otherwise not much needed done with this map, to be honest. It had a couple of small problems, but that's it. It's not. It's literally just a better Empire's Border. Yeah. And next we have Glacier. This map is god awful. Now, I don't think no. So it is better than it was because they added a lot more cover here and here, which was good. Oh, but this map is still not fun to play on. I'll say that. Again, a lot of wasted space with hills out here that just don't really serve any purpose. Obviously you've got a lot of deep water around here that is just, yeah, you drown. I feel like it's too easy for people to shoot down towards the heavies when they're up on the aircraft carrier. I think, around here is fine, but you can go all the way up here and shoot down. Same for up here, which shouldn't really be a thing. So that's something that I feel like they need to address. And I do also feel like having a ramp going up from the heavy tank side onto the aircraft carrier would actually solve a lot of the issues there. And I also feel like maybe an extra bit of cover around here and here is warranted. And as well over here, this actually this side's not too bad, but I feel like it could be a lot more interesting if they just opened up this little corner here, added an extra couple of roads, better cover, or more cover, like little angles that you can like peek around. It would be a lot more interesting than just a single track road that you kind of just butt heads against. As soon as you find other tanks, you're literally just corner fighting everyone, and it's just so boring. As well as that, these bushes can be so obnoxious, and so can some of the ones around here. So I feel like while it's not necessarily the worst thing, because you want to be able to defend your cap circle to a reasonable extent, that only works if your team has been able to successfully win the heavy side and get like that out of the way. Because this is, if you can like get across to here, then it's not that much of a stretch to be able to get across to here. And then if you come to here, if you get to here, it's not a stretch to get across to here. Whereas if you're coming the other way, if you get to here, it's a lot more difficult for you to get from here across to here. It's a much longer distance. Same if you're coming to here, it's longer to get that distance out. Same here, and here, and here if you're going that way. So yeah, I feel like that's something they could probably address with like maybe some slightly better cover for people like around here or around here. But that's about it. I don't think this map is possible to make good, but those are some options that they could do to at least do something to try and improve things. Certainly on this ice road on the bottom here. Right, Tundra. Right, Tundra before 1.0 I actually didn't mind. Old Tundra I didn't mind because fighting the hill you had a lot more space to use because it was a lot more flat, it wasn't as steep, and it also felt like the hill wasn't quite as dominant because of that. It's a lot more easy to shoot down on people now. It's a lot stronger if you can win hill. It also meant that tanks that didn't have a ton of gun depression could actually have a much better time brawling it out around here. So there's that as well, and this is my biggest gripe with it, to be honest. It's my biggest problem with this map. I do also kind of feel like, this side's a bit unimaginative for both sides. I feel like they could actually like make the routes around each a little more interesting. They could have like a road through there. They could even like I don't know, they could add like a couple extra buildings for this, and maybe even like some extra construction materials lying around here and here for people to take cover behind. Even if these materials will only like take like 1 or 2 hits from tanks before they are like destroyed. Before those pieces of cover are destroyed, much like destructible buildings. Um, but yeah, most of my problem comes from the hill. I feel like this big part here, this big mountain here, you could like actually have roads go around there, and then they can like interact with this area a bit. That could be interesting. Um, I feel like this side, if you get there from spawn 1, there's not much interesting going on there. Like you've got all your interesting stuff here. I feel like if you had a road going that way, like instead of this mountain, it could be a bit more interesting. So it could be a little bit more like what we've got here. And yeah, that's all I would really change about it. Just like not make the hill as toxic to fight on is the biggest one, really. All right, Westfield. Now your spawn locations are here and here for spawn 1, here and here for spawn 2. I kind of feel like this position and this position are a little bit obnoxious for tank destroyers. I feel like this big hill here they could open up and actually have as a usable location, because that would actually be interesting to go around that way. Instead of just like this tiny little spot here that gets slapped by TDs from there or there. So there's definitely that. And I feel like they could maybe extend this little village down here, so you've got something that's for hardcover down there. I feel like they could maybe add another couple of hills here and here for hardcover on that side. I feel like the little village could extend a little further as well down here for hardcover. And yeah, that's pretty much all I would change about Westfield. I don't have as much I would change about this one. Now we're getting through them, boys. We're almost done. Wide Park. And Wide Park, seeing anything higher than tier 3 is already bad because it's way too small even for tier 4. And but other than that, it needs to have this middle hill, this like ridge, like adjusted in terms of how steep it is on either side. Currently, it's not as steep from spawn to the north spawn versus the south spawn. South spawn is quite steep. So that needs to be adjusted so then both spawns can actually somewhat use it. This hill can be quite strong for TDs at times, but it's not like the biggest deal, so I'm not as bothered about that. I feel like some of these bigger buildings could have more routes through them if they're bombed out a bit. I feel like this kind of position here needs to have an analog on this side or here, so then both sides can actually try and contest this hull down gun depression spot here. I feel like this position here can be abused by TDs a bit. They can shoot straight down here pretty much. You don't really have the same from the other side. Well, you do if you're smart. You can use those bushes if you set them up properly. But that's about it. I do kind of feel like they could add another little bridge area here, very much like this. That people could try and go through and contest things. Next, why is this deep water? You could make that really shallow. People can drown in this for no reason, by the way. And that's pretty much it. That's all I would change. Obviously, the biggest part is reducing the highest tier that sees it, make it tier 3 on maximum. Oh man, Windstorm. This is one I wanted to have a look at as well with you guys, because again, it's an example of a map that while it does have some wasted space, it has a lot more options in what you can do compared to current day maps. So obviously, I'm going to start with the city, because the city does have a variety of different options that you can actually use. And for one, I'm going to start at the bottom. You do have the little like shallows area here that you can use to try and get into positions along here. And same the other way. I do feel like this whole area could have been opened up a bit more. You could have had like a whole ice, like glacier thing, where that's all super solidly frozen that you can like travel across with like boats or ships or icebergs or something giving you cover. And I don't mind that the river is deep here, but I do feel like that could also be frozen over, so that if you dip into it, you can use that as another route around the map. That would have been really cool to see, because it actually gets really shallow round about here, and then you can actually just go all the way along this way, and because it gets really shallow, you can actually use the river for most of it. It's just like deeper parts, like around here. At least that's from what I remember. But you've got multiple bridges across, and you've got this little area here you can go up and down in. Same here. You've got different elevation levels, and then you've got the little hill here that people can sit on and snipe from, but it's not particularly amazing cover. It does have its downsides, but you can kind of shoot people here, and you can kind of do the same here somewhat. And then obviously you can like kind of duck in and around all the cover around all the different buildings. You had multiple different streets you could go down and around people. Over here you had 2-3 different roads. You had around this way, around here, around here, around here. You had options. Like even like when you got to here, you could go around this way pretty much. And and you had options over here. You had the little hill area around just next to the cap circle. You could go up around this way. You just had so much more you could do on these maps. Even like at Cap Circle 1, there you had like spaces you could go to around here to try and defend. You had stuff you could do. you could be somewhat creative in where you could go. This was not a bad map. Not bad at all. Did it have issues? Yeah, like this big mountain here, like a lot of it is just like wasted space. But there's still like ways you could go. Like this was a road. You could use this bit. This is a bit you could use. But then obviously you had like all this rest of it that you couldn't. Obviously, like you had all the rest of this area that you couldn't really use. But for me, in the case of this map, the way the rest of it was done, those in my mind were the wasted space isn't. It doesn't feel like it's as big an issue on this map compared to a lot of the maps we currently have. So Windstorm, I would actually not mind seeing return exactly as it was, just in HD. That's it. That's all it needs. That's all it realistically needs. Every change that I would make is something that would be completely optional and would not necessarily make this like better, but it might give you more things that you could do. You could be a bit more creative with. That's it on this map. And so yeah, Windstorm could definitely be better. And then we have the Winter Himmelsdorf and Winter Ruinberg, so we're not really going to talk about those. So really long video, really long. I didn't realize just quite how long I went on for. But yeah, I hope that you guys appreciate this. I hope that I mean they probably won't see it, but you know, if anyone wants to send this to the wargaming team, give them some ideas on how maps could actually be a lot more interesting in this game, add a whole nother layer of depth that I think people would actually enjoy. You know, people like experimenting with going different places on the map. I mean, you do get a nickname for people who are driving around the map in weird ways. That you know they get nicknamed tourists. But how else are you going to figure out where you want to go on the map? What positions work and what don't? And like when to use different parts of the map with what tanks without doing that sort of thing. If you're at least like learning from that, that's really important. But that I think that also on top of this really should show the big difference between old wargaming map design and new, and just how much more interesting and more fluid some of the other maps, the older map designs could play. You had a lot more options. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this one. I know it's a bit of a long haul. I would advise uh, watching this in stages because this is 3 hours long. Well, over 3 hours. So yeah, hope you guys appreciate this. Like I say, please do share it, and please do leave your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know what you guys would change about different maps, and let me know which maps you enjoy the most. Let me know which ones you hate the most, and yeah, just get yourselves a wee discussion going. And yeah, I need to rest my voice. Thank you all for watching. Catch you all in the next one.